Chapter 4757, Being punished. The old ancestor of the Lan family clapped his hands and a masked man walked out. Master, the reason why you didn't give Yunchujo to him is because of young Master Luo Chen? The old ancestor of the Lan family smiled. It's not entirely because of him breaking through the love tribulation. Don't you think that ever since that little girl came to the ancestral residence has become much more interesting? The corner of the man's mouth twitched a few times. Master, are you trying to protect Yunchujo? He did not think that the cold-hearted master would protect Yunchujo just because of her temperamental personality. There must be other reasons behind this. The old ancestor of the Lan family said lightly, since this little girl is very important to the Divine Devil Hall and we hold her in our hands, she is a useful bargaining chip. How can we give her to the Divine Devil Hall so easily? Besides, the Divine Devil Hall is very secretive. They said that they would help us become the #1 aristocratic family to contend with the Zen sect. I'm afraid that they are trying to kill us by using us as an excuse. I'm not old enough to be fooled by them. Master is wise. What about Yunchujo? Let her jump around first. There's no need to interfere. She won't be able to jump out of my hands anyway. Yes. 10 days passed in the blink of an eye. Hei Shinjo was once again called to the front by Mr. Shi. This fellow had been fiddling around for a long time, but all he could do was transform into Goeibatsao. Mr. Shi was both angry and angry. What else do you have to say? Nothing else. I'll go chop wood after class, Hei Shinjo said dejectedly. Mr. Shi snorted coldly. After letting her return to her seat, he said, Lan Luofeng, come forward. Lan Luofeng braced herself and went to the front. With a whimper, she transformed into a fish head. Although it looked a little better than before, it was still far from what guest Elder Shi had requested. In the end, she was also punished by Mr. Shi to chop the undying wood. After class, Lan Luoyen and a few people who were on good terms with her started to mock and ridicule Yunchujo and Lan Luofeng. TSK, the two of you are really like each other. A pair of trash. You are so trash. I reckon that you will be punished in the future. The immortal wood in the garden was prepared for you, ha ha ha. Lan Luofeng was so angry that she gritted her teeth. She wanted to fight with Lan Luoyen, but she was afraid that the others would help, so she could only glare at Lan Luofeng. Yunchujo, who was at the side, said slowly, Sister Luofeng, don't listen to the dog barking here. Let's go. Lan Luofeng was so angry that she scolded, who are you calling a dog barking? Yunchujo, are you courting death? If Third Elder didn't help you out last time, I would have let you know how powerful you are. Yunchujo didn't even look at her and dragged Lan Luofeng out of the training hall. Lan Luoyen was so angry that she was twitching. She was originally mocking the two of them, but why did she end up so angry? It was all because of that bitch Yunchujo. Lan Luomei said from the side, Sister Luoyen, in half a month's time, the family competition will be held. That Yunchujius natal spiritual beast is only a Goeibatsao. When the time comes, you just have to teach her a lesson. Lan Luoyen's eyes flashed with malice. Although the family competition did not allow people to be killed, it was hard to avoid a momentary mistake. When the time came, she would take the opportunity to kill that bitch. In her eyes, Yunchujo was no match for her. Not to mention the huge difference in spiritual power, her spiritual beast was still a Goeibatsao. It was simply trash. Chapter 4758, Giant Fish. After Yunchujo and Lan Luofeng left the cultivation hall, they rushed to the garden of the ancestral residence. Lan Luofeng was very depressed. It was not that she did not work hard, nor was it that she did not work hard, but she just could not successfully transform. She felt that all of this was too unfair. When she saw Yunchujo, who was eating fruits as she walked, she suddenly felt angry. Eat, eat, eat. You only know how to eat for one day. Aren't you sad at all? Yunchujo glanced at her. Sad? What's there to be sad about? I couldn't create a spirit beast in the first place. It's not that I didn't work hard. Besides, no one said that if you can't create a spirit beast, you have to die. What's the big deal? Lan Luofang was stunned. When she came back to her senses, she found that Yun Chuzhou had already walked some distance away. She quickly chased after her and said, "But, if you can't transform into a supporting spiritual beast, you will be at a disadvantage in the battle. Are you really not worried?" Yun Chuzhou casually threw the fruit core in her hand and said slowly, "Let me ask you, if a tiger and a group of chickens fight, who will win?" Lan Luofang said unhappily, "Is there a need to ask? Of course it's a tiger. No matter how many chickens there are, they are still not a match for a tiger. So, you just have to make your natal spiritual beast more powerful and become a tiger-like existence. Why are you afraid of other people's little chicks? Besides, why do you have to transform into a swordfish? Since you have the experience of transforming into a fish head, why don't you just transform into a giant fish?" Lan Luofang stared blankly at Yun Chuzhou, who was smiling brightly. She felt that Han Dun's thoughts had become clear in an instant. She almost subconsciously released her water spirit energy and instantly transformed into a giant fish. Although it was not that agile, it was much stronger than before. Lan Luofang looked at the giant fish that she had transformed into. She calculated with her nose and tears flowed down. Finally, she squatted on the ground and started sobbing. Yun Chuzhou looked speechlessly at the crying Lan Luofang. Other than helping Lan Luofang with the intention to rope in Jia Shi, more importantly, she found Lan Luofang more pleasing to the eye. That's right, this fellow liked to train and teach this kind of prideful little girl, and he kept a respectful distance from Lan Luoshan, that kind of white lotus. After a while, Lan Luofang stood up with red eyes and said somewhat awkwardly, "Just take it that I owe you one more time. Since you're so cunning, why can't you transform into a supplementary spiritual beast?" Yun Chuzhou shrugged. "Doctors can't cure themselves. There's nothing I can do about it. Besides, my Gowei Batsao is also very, very powerful." The two of them chatted as they walked. Soon, they arrived at the garden of the ancestral residence. Although it was called a garden, in fact, most of the plants in the garden could be used as medicine. The reason why He Xinzhou knew this was very simple. Guai Chao, this foodie, was acting cute again. After He Xinzhou suppressed the Guai Chao, she followed Lan Luofang to the northeast corner of the garden. There was a small piece of immortal wood growing there. Unlike what Yun Chuzhou had imagined, the immortal wood was not very thick. Moreover, it did not look strange on the outside. Could it really not be cut? The guard guarding the immortal wood handed over 2 axes, indicating that the 2 of them could cut the tree. The guard's duty was to supervise the people chopping down the undying wood. After they completed their task, he would hand them the corresponding certificates for examination by Mr. Shi. Chapter 4759 really needed to use her brain. Yun Chuzhou shamelessly picked the thinnest immortal wood, picked up the axe, and chopped at the tree trunk. Although she used all her strength, she only left a hole less than half an inch deep in the tree trunk, and the hole quickly recovered as if it had never been cut. Lan Luofang, who was watching from the side, said with a bitter smile, "Did you see it? This immortal wood is so strange. I guess we'll have to chop it until this time tomorrow to cut off an immortal wood. This thing is so magical. If it's made into a weapon, wouldn't it be very powerful?" Yun Chuzhou's eyes sparkled as she said. Although the immortal wood is not afraid of being cut by knives, it's extremely afraid of fire. Therefore, it's very useless and doesn't have much use, Lan Luofang explained. Yun Chuzhou was immediately discouraged when she heard that. She thought that this thing was very valuable, but it turned out that it was only used to torture people. An hour later, Yun Chuzhou saw that the trunk of the undying tree was still unharmed, and she was instantly discouraged. She threw the axe on the ground and said to Lan Luofang, "I won't cut it anymore. You can cut it yourself." Lan Luofang wiped the sweat from her forehead. "If you don't cut the undying tree down, Mr. Sure won't let you take the spiritual power class. Yun Shujo rolled her eyes. Actually, she could try using the large kitchen knife, but the guard beside her had been staring at her, so she didn't have the chance to make a move. Besides, she didn't want to expose the magic of the big kitchen knife. What if someone was after her? Then, how could she cut down this damn immortal tree effortlessly? This guy held his chin and pondered. The reason why this immortal tree was immortal was because of its fast recovery ability. In that case, if there was a way to prevent it from recovering, wouldn't that be enough? This guy stood up and walked in front of Lan Luofang. He nibbled on a fruit and watched her cut the tree. Lan Luofang was angry. It was fine if you didn't cut it yourself, but you still came to watch the show. You really owe me. However, she was very grateful to Yun Shujo now, so she endured it and didn't say anything. She continued to cut the tree. Yun Shujo noticed that there was a small amount of liquid seeping out from the cut that Lan Luofang had cut. This was probably the secret to the immortal tree's rapid recovery. Yun Shujo looked around and grabbed a handful of soil. After Lan Luofang had finished cutting, she quickly sprinkled it on the cut of the tree trunk. Lan Luofang couldn't take it anymore. Yun Shujo, what are you doing? It's fine if you don't cut yourself, but why are you here to cause trouble for me? This guy clapped his hands happily. Indeed, people still needed to rely on their brains. She would not be stupid enough to chop it for an entire day and night. Sister Luofang, look. After I sprinkled the soil on the broken part of the immortal wood, the healing speed of the immortal wood has slowed down a lot. This means that as long as the sap secreted by the immortal wood is cut off, we can easily cut it off, Yun Shujo said with a smile. Lan Luofang looked in the direction that Yun Shujo was pointing at and was surprised to find that Yun Shujo was right. The healing speed of the undying wood had indeed slowed down a lot. She felt that her brain was not enough. She did not know how many people had been punished to cut down this undying wood. Didn't everyone just obediently cut down the tree? Perhaps only Yun Shujo would think of this? Lan Luofang took a moment to calm down and said, even if you are right, how can it help? We can't just cut down and throw dirt into it, right? At the beginning, it was fine, but as the fracture went deeper, the dirt probably could not be thrown in. Chapter 4760 was indeed full of bad ideas. Yun Shujo looked at her as if she was looking at an idiot. Sister Luofang, is that your head on your neck? It can't be a lump of wood, right? Who said that you have to sprinkle the soil? The reason why I sprinkled the soil is to prove that as long as the sap is blocked, it can slow down the healing speed of the immortal wood. Can't you just cut and pour water into it at the same time? Anyway, you have a water spiritual root, so you can easily make water. Although Lan Luofang was annoyed by this fellow, her heart was moved. Yes, using water could completely dilute or flush out the sap secreted by the immortal wood. Perhaps this was really feasible. Thus, as Lan Luofang cut, she used water to wash away the cut. She was pleasantly surprised to find that the healing speed of the immortal wood had indeed slowed down a lot. Even the naked eye could not see any signs of healing. She continued to work hard and chopped more than a dozen times. The immortal wood broke with a sound. Lan Luofang rubbed her eyes. She could not believe it. How could it break so easily? Yun Shujo said with a smile, come over and help me water it. Lan Luofang naturally did not have any objections. She immediately went over to help and continuously poured water on the broken part that Yun Shujo had cut. A moment later, Yun Shujo's immortal wood also broke. Yun Shujo threw the axe in front of the guard. Our mission is complete. Give us the proof. The guard was dumbfounded. He had supervised many people cutting the immortal wood, but this was definitely the first time they had done it so easily. However, they did not conform to the rules. The other party had indeed used the axe to cut it, and there was no rule against sprinkling water. Therefore, he could only take out 2 wooden tokens that represented the completion of the mission and give them to the 2 of them. Yun Shujo put away the wooden tokens and hummed a tune as she left the garden with Lan Luofang. Of course, during this period, Guai Chao once again clamored to eat the spiritual plants in the garden. However, He Xingjiu mercilessly suppressed it. What a joke. If she were to pick the herbs in this garden, she would definitely be taken to the punishment hall. Elder Ning would definitely still remember what happened last time. She did not want to court death. Yun Shujo saw that it was still early, so she dragged Lan Luofang to the library. She didn't expect to meet Lan Luoyen and the others at the entrance of the library. You two trash actually dare not chop the undying wood? Do you plan to not have any spiritual power lessons in the future? But that's true. It doesn't matter if trash like you don't have lessons. You won't be able to learn anyway. Lan Luofang wanted to defend herself, but she was dragged into the library by Yun Shujo. Why are you dragging me? Why didn't you tell them that we've already chopped the immortal wood? Lan Luofang asked in confusion. Are you stupid? Why did you say so much to her? When class starts, she'll jump up and down and scold us. Then, well, take out the wooden token. When that time comes, her expression will definitely be very interesting. How fun would that be? Yun Shujo laughed like a wolf with a big tail. Lan Luofang, no wonder her mother always said that this little trash was full of bad ideas. She was indeed too evil. Yun Shujo took out the recliner and placed it on the ground. Then, she started to read happily. The books on the first floor of the library were not rare books. Basically, they were all basic cultivation techniques and some basic knowledge about the Chongshao continent. Yun Shujo picked up a book and started reading it. It recorded some strange things and treated it as a notebook. When she saw one of the records, Yun Shujo suddenly sat up straight. Chapter 4761. Could she be the descendant of a mermaid? Lan Luofang saw Yun Shujia's abnormal behavior and came over. She saw the jade slip in Yun Shujia's hand that had this paragraph written on it. It's rumored that the ancestors of the Lan family in the Chongshao continent once married a mermaid, so most of the descendants of the Lan family have water spiritual roots and are quite talented. Lan Luofang pursed her lips. You really believe it? This is simply nonsense. If we really have mermaid blood in our bodies, why would we still live on land? We would have long gone to the sea. Besides, mermaids are also demonic beasts. How could humans and demons get married? These people are just jealous of our Lan family's talent and made it up. Yun Shujo smiled. What you said makes sense. Looks like you're not that stupid after all. Lan Luofang snorted coldly and ignored her. She continued to read her book. Yun Shujia's eyes fell on the record, but she thought in her heart that this record might not be fake because Lan Luchen's appearance was too similar to that of the mermaid big brother. Especially after he used a secret technique and turned his eyes blue, he was practically identical to the mermaid brother. Perhaps this was a phenomenon of atavism, but if that was the case, wasn't she also a descendant of the mermaid? He Xingjiu could not help but laugh self-deprecatingly. She did not even know what she was. The reincarnation of the ghost ancestor was most likely related to the demon ancestor, and now it was related to the mermaid. What was she exactly? A few days later, it was time for the spirit energy lesson. Lan Luoyen thought that Yun Shujo and Lan Luofang did not go to chop the undying wood, so she said a lot of harsh words. Furthermore, she took the initiative to report to Mr. Shi after he came in. Then, Yun Shujo and Lan Luoyen handed over the wooden token calmly. Lan Luoyen was harshly reprimanded by Mr. Shi and was punished to chop the undying wood. Lan Luofang almost burst out laughing. She now felt that following Yun Shujo, this good-for-nothing, was not bad. At the very least, she could make Lan Luoyen suffer without much effort. Lan Luoyen was naturally half dead from anger. For several days, she could not even pick up her chopsticks. She had even made up her mind to let Yun Shujo have a good look at the family competition. In the blink of an eye, the time for the family competition had arrived. Although it was only a small competition, the leaders of the Lan family's main, second, and third branches had all come. Their purpose was very clear. They wanted to see which branch's junior was more outstanding. The rules of the Lan family competition were different from other places. Participants could challenge anyone they wanted. However, in order to ensure fairness, each person could participate in the competition at most 2 times. After that, they wouldn't have the qualifications to challenge or be challenged. Lan Luoyen stared at Yun Chuzhou viciously. She had already thought it through. As long as the competition was announced, she would challenge Yun Chuzhou, this trash. Firstly, she could take revenge, and secondly, she could give her eldest son face. However, she did not expect that Lan Luofang would propose a challenge to her as soon as the competition started. Although Lan Luoyen was a little surprised, she thought that it was not bad to take care of this trash Lan Luofang first. After all, she had not learned how to transform into a supplementary spiritual beast and was not her opponent at all. Immediately, the two of them walked to the venue of the competition. Without saying anything, they directly started fighting. Jia Shi looked at the competition on the field with concern. Although Lan Luofang and Lan Luoyan's spiritual power levels were both at the second level of the extreme spiritual realm, Lan Luoyen could already transform into a supplementary spiritual beast long ago. How could Fang Er be her match? Lan Dimeo's face was also a little solemn. In his heart, he was blaming Lan Luofang. Did he not know what level he was at? And he was the first one to go up. Wasn't he asking for humiliation? Only, Yun Chuzhou was leisurely munching on melon seeds. She had told Lan Luofang a brilliant plan. It was no problem for her to take care of that little bitch Lan Luoyen. Chapter 4762 was a complete victory. Lan Dimeo saw He Xinzhou munching on melon seeds and became even more furious. On such an important occasion, this little trash was munching on melon seeds? He was wondering why Lan Luofang suddenly became so random. It turned out that it was this little trash who abducted her. It seemed that he had to teach Jia Shi a lesson and let her restrain Lan Luofang so that she wouldn't be completely led astray by this little trash. He regained his senses and put his attention back to the competition field. Lan Luofang and Lan Luoyen only had a movement technique competition at the beginning and didn't release their spirit beasts. Lan Luofang was usually very hard-working in body refinement, so she had a slight advantage. Lan Luofang was secretly resentful and immediately released her spirit goshawk. Lan Luofang also released her natal spirit beast, a spirit tiger shark. The spiritual power goshawk and the spiritual power tiger shark immediately engaged in a battle. Although water countered fire, this was not suitable for a battle between spiritual power beasts. For a moment, the two spiritual power beasts were locked in a stalemate, unable to determine the winner. Lan Luoyen revealed a cold smile. She still had a trump card. After she formed a seal, a fire butterfly joined the battle. Although the fire butterfly's combat strength was not strong, because of its addition, the balance between the goshawk and tiger shark was instantly broken, and the tiger shark fell into a disadvantageous position. The worry on Jia Shi's face became even more intense, and she could not wait to end the competition immediately. However, she did not dare, and could only stare at the competition intently. Lan Luoyen looked at Lan Luofang with contempt. I advise you to surrender immediately, or else, HMPH. Lan Luofang bit her lips and did not say anything, but directly attacked Lan Luofang. Lan Luofang curled her lips. Although her movement technique was not as good as Lan Luofang's, it would not take long for her spiritual beast to win. She only needed to hold on for a while. However, what she did not expect was that after the two of them exchanged blows, Lan Luofang suddenly released a giant fish and pounced towards Lan Luoyen. Lan Luoyen cried out in surprise. She had no idea that Lan Luofang could already transform into a supporting spiritual beast, so she was caught off guard. It was already too late for her spiritual beast to come over and help. The giant fish opened its bloody mouth and bit Lan Luoyen's entire upper body in its mouth. Although it was only a spiritual beast, this time, it also caused Lan Luoyan to suffer a huge injury, and she spat out a mouthful of blood. Lan Luofang kicked Lan Luoyan's abdomen, directly kicking her out of the competition ground. This round, Lan Luofang won completely. Lan Luofang saw the surprise and gratification on Jia Shi's face, and could not help but redden her eyes. She had finally done it. She could finally make her mother proud of her. She could finally rely on her own strength to defeat the people who bullied her. She looked gratefully at Yun Chuzhou, who was still munching on melon seeds. If she had not given her an idea to hide the fact that she could transform into a giant fish, she might not have been able to defeat Lan Luoyan so easily. The worry on Lan Dimeo's face instantly turned into complacency. He glanced at Lan Dimeo, who was from the Lan family's main branch, and said, "Big brother, I'm sorry. We won this round. Speaking of which, Luo Fang is the weakest among the three of us. It's really surprising that she won so easily." Lan Dimeo's face didn't look good. He said coldly, "Dimeo, there are winners and losers in this competition. It's just the beginning, so it's nothing. Also, I think the weakest among the three of you is that Yun Chuzhou, right? One person can participate in 2 matches. The three of you are already destined to lose 2 matches before you even start." Chapter 4763, Lan Dimeo, who was almost angered to death. Lan Dimeo listened to Lan Diguang's words and then looked at Yun Chuzhou, who had changed from eating melon seeds to eating fruits. He instantly felt a little stifled. Not only did this little trash have low spiritual power, but her natal spiritual beast was also a Gowei Batsao. Anyone on the field could torture her to death. Sigh, for the jade token, he could only endure it. He could only hope that no one would challenge this little trash. At this moment, Lan Luofang's Lan Luofang proposed to challenge Lan Luofang. The reason was very simple. She wanted to help the big house regain face. Lan Luofang knew that she was not Lan Luofang's opponent. Therefore, after fighting with all her might for a moment, she took the initiative to admit defeat. Lan Dimeo could not help but be stunned when he saw the neither servile nor overbearing Lan Luofang. He remembered that Lan Luofang was not like this in the past. She was very strong-willed. How did she become so transparent now? His gaze could not help but fall on Yun Chuzhou, who was chewing on a fruit. Could it be that she was influenced by this little trash? In that case, it seemed that it was not a bad thing to let Lan Luofang follow this little trash. The next round of the competition had 3 winners and losers. After calculating the winner, it was actually a draw. There was one person from the big house, second house, and third house who had not participated in the competition. They all had 2 chances to challenge. Lan Luocheng, who was left from the main branch, and Lan Luomu, who was left from the third branch, were the best of their generation. As for the remaining person from the third branch, it was Yun Chuzhou. Lan Luocheng and Lan Luomu looked at each other. Both of them had a tacit understanding. The outcome of the competition between the 2 of them would directly determine the result of this competition. The reason was very simple. No matter who won or lost, they could easily defeat Yun Chuzhou. She was not in their consideration at all. Lan Dimeo sighed. It was over. The 3 of them would definitely be at the bottom this time. It was a pity that Luo Han had gone out to carry out the family mission. Otherwise, he could have competed with the 2 of them. When he thought of this, he looked at Yun Chuzhou with disdain. He saw that this fellow had stopped eating fruits and was eating pastries. He did not look like he was here to participate in the competition. Instead, he looked like he was here for an outing. Lan Dimeo glared at her fiercely, only to see He Xinjiu jumping towards him. "Great uncle, why are you looking for me? Are you hungry too?" Lan Dimeo was so angry that he almost died. If it were not for the fact that he could not lose his temper in front of everyone, he would have given Yun Chuzhou a get lost. He suppressed his anger and said, "In a while, Luo Cheng and Luo Mu will definitely challenge you after the winner is decided. Just admit defeat so that you won't get hurt. Yun Shujiu nodded obediently. Great uncle, I think so too. A good-for-nothing like me is no match for them. There's no need for me to rush to their side. Lon Dimeo felt a mouthful of blood rush to his throat. He didn't even want to look at her. He waved his hand and said, "Get lost. Get as far away as possible." After Yun Shujiu left, Lon Deguang from the main branch and Lon Deshun from the second branch said a few sarcastic words. Lon Dimeo was so angry that his intestines were turning green with regret. If he had known this would happen, he would have found an excuse to not let this little trash participate in the competition. At this moment, Lon Luocheng and Lon Luomu had already fought. In the end, Lon Luocheng from the main branch narrowly won. The people from the main branch immediately cheered. This time, the first place in the family competition would definitely belong to their main branch. Lon Luocheng was very proud. He pretended to say a few polite words to Lon Luomu. Then, he looked at Yun Shujiu and said with disdain, "Yun Shujiu, quickly admit defeat. Don't waste time." Chapter 47-64, Am I Really Such a Good-for-Nothing? Everyone present thought that Yun Shujiu would happily admit defeat. Unexpectedly, she said with disdain, "With just you? You want me to admit defeat? The people of our three branches would rather live while standing than die while sitting. No way." Lon Dimeo almost jumped up from his chair. Was this little girl crazy? Didn't she just say that she would surrender obediently? Why did she become so arrogant now? With her small arms and legs, and her useless Gowei Batsao spiritual beast, she still wanted to fight with Lon Luocheng? Was she asking for a beating with tricks? Lon Luocheng was stunned at first, then sneered, "Yun Shujiu, since you say such arrogant words, then don't blame me for being ruthless. Please. Wait a minute. Your spiritual power is so high, and you are older than me. Do you have the nerve to fight with me like this?" Yun Shujiu curled her lips and said. Lon Luocheng sneered and said, "Then according to you, how should we compete? You are not allowed to use spiritual beasts, and you have to give me 3 moves. Of course, if you feel that you don't have the ability, you can directly reject me. After all, Lon Luochen is not here right now, so there are people who are not as strong as the monkeys." Yun Shujiu said with slight disdain. Yun Shujiu's words clearly hit Lon Luocheng's sore spot. The person he feared the most and hated the most was Lon Luochen, and he immediately snorted, "I will agree to you. Even so, you can't last 10 moves in my hands. Make your move." Yun Shujiu blinked her eyes. "Let's be honest. If I win, you can't go back on your word, and you can't say that I won unjustly. You volunteered for this. Of course. Hurry up and make your move." "Don't waste time," Lon Luocheng said impatiently. In his eyes, Yun Shujiu was like an ant. He was at the 4th level of the Supreme Spirit Realm, while Yun Shujiu was only at the 6th level of the Nirvana Spirit Realm. There was no comparison at all. Therefore, even if he did not use the Spirit Beast, he was still confident that he could defeat Yun Shujiu within 10 moves if he allowed Yun Shujiu to use 3 moves. Everyone present thought the same way. Only Lon Luofang saw the smile on Yun Shujiu's face and felt that things were not that simple. Based on the lesson that she had learned through blood and tears, the moment that bad guy revealed that smile, it was basically a scam. Yun Shujiu put on an act and cupped her hands towards Lon Luocheng. "Brother Luocheng, I'm going to make a move now. Be careful." Lon Luocheng curled his lips in disdain and did not say anything. However, he was still fully focused on watching Yun Shujiu's every move. "Hey! Take this," Yun Shujiu said as she slammed her palm with spiritual power towards Lon Luocheng's front heart. Seeing that Lon Luocheng easily dodged her attack, Yun Shujiu was stunned. "You dodged it so easily? Am I really that good for nothing?" The crowd booed. "Don't you know whether you're good for nothing or not?" Yun Shujo gritted her teeth and said, I don't believe that I can't hit you. Take this. Lan Luoqing thought that this guy had a trump card, but he realized that this attack was only slightly faster than the previous one. Even if he didn't dodge it, this attack wouldn't hurt him. At this point, Lan Luoqing's vigilance had mostly dissipated. At this moment, he only saw an afterimage, but he could feel a thick killing intent behind him. Chapter 4765 Yun Shujo wins. Lan Luoqing was shocked and hurriedly jumped forward. Even so, he was still hit by Yun Shujia's palm wind on his right shoulder. He immediately cried out in pain. Before Lan Luoqing could react, Yun Shujia's palm wind had already attacked him again. Lan Luoqing couldn't care less about the pain on his right shoulder. He quickly jumped to the side and dodged Yun Shujia's attack. Brother Luoqing, we agreed to give you 3 moves. Why did you give me 1 more move? You really have the demeanor of an elder brother. Yun Shujo said with a smile. Lan Luoqing's face was very gloomy. He now knew that Yun Shujia's first 2 moves were used to confuse him. The ultimate goal was to let the 3rd move succeed. He sneered, Yun Shujo, even if your plot succeeds and hurts my right shoulder, I can easily defeat you. Take this. The 2 of them immediately engaged in a fight. However, contrary to everyone's expectations, the 2 of them actually ended in a draw. Everyone present was stunned. Yun Shujia's spiritual power was clearly much lower than Lan Luoqing's, yet she could actually end in a draw with him? This movement technique was too powerful, right? It was rare for Lan Dimeo to find Yun Shujo pleasing to the eye. This little trash at least had some redeeming qualities. However, no matter how fast her movement technique was, she would not be a match for Lan Luoqing in the long run. What a pity. At this moment, he heard Yun Shujo say smugly, Brother Luoqing, you say that you, an expert at the 4th level of the extreme spiritual realm, actually fought me to a draw. Aren't you ashamed? TSK, I don't even know how you defeated Brother Luomu. It's probably dog shit, luck, right? With your level of trash, any one of the people present can defeat you. With you like this, where did you get the courage to give me 3 moves? Why aren't you using your spiritual beast? TSK, you're really shameless. Lan Luoqing was almost angered to death by this fellow. This stupid girl's words were too sarcastic. What did she mean by where did he get the courage? She was the one who forced him to give 3 moves, alright? She was really too shameless. Lan Luoqing wished that he could slap Yun Shujo away and end the competition. However, Yun Shujo was as slippery as a loach and he could not even touch the corner of her clothes. Just when Lan Luoqing was extremely anxious, he realized that Yun Shujia's move had a flaw. He was immediately delighted and did not think too much about it. He attacked that flaw. In fact, most of the onlookers could tell that it was a flaw that Yun Shujo had deliberately exposed in order to trick Lan Luoqing. However, Lan Luoqing was already dizzy from Yun Shujia's anger and was anxious to win, so he was tragically tricked. By the time he reacted, he had already been kicked out of the competition ground by Yun Shujo. Lan Luoqing's head was buzzing. He was a little confused. Who was he? Where was he? What was he doing? However, when he saw Yun Shujo smiling in the middle of the arena, he immediately became angry out of embarrassment. Yun Shujo, you, what about me? Brother Luoqing, the winner takes all. You've already lost. Don't embarrass yourself here. Yun Shujo said smugly. Lan Luoqing was so angry that he pointed at Yun Shujo while trembling. You! Yun Shujo interrupted him again. What do you want to say? That I'm a swindler? Don't you know that every war is full of swindlers? You lost to your own underestimation of the enemy and your own arrogance, and you still have the nerve to blame me? Shameless. Chapter 4766 Was she here to embroider flowers? Lan Luoqing was so angry that he almost vomited blood. He was so angry that he wanted to go up and find trouble with Yun Chujo, but he saw Yun Chujo run up to Lan Dimeo. Uncle, Grandpa, please control Brother Luocheng. How can he beat someone up when he loses? You scared me. Lan Dimeo saw Lan Dimeo's stiff face and felt very comfortable in his heart. When he looked at Yun Chujo again, he felt that this bad guy was much more pleasing to the eye. Although he won by relying on bad water, it was good to win no matter what. Ha ha ha. Lan Deguang gritted his teeth and said to Yun Chujo, Luocheng is just trying to scare you. Admit defeat. He won't do anything excessive. That's good. He really scared me to death. I thought Brother Luocheng was going to kill me. Yun Chujo patted her chest and said with a fearful expression. Although Lan Luocheng wanted to strangle Yun Chujo to death, when he heard Lan Deguang's words, he had no choice but to return to his seat with a gloomy face. Lan Luamu was the one who was the happiest at this moment. At first, he thought that their second branch would only be second, but now that Yun Chujo had defeated Lan Luocheng, his chance had come. As long as he defeated Yun Chujo, the third branch would be tied, and their second branch would not have to lower themselves by a head. Thinking of this, he said to Yun Chujo, who had already jumped back to the competition venue, Yun Chujo, although you used extraordinary methods to defeat Brother Luocheng, I won't fall for your trick. Just admit defeat. TSK, it seems that you're even worse than Brother Luocheng. At least Brother Luocheng has the guts to let me win, Yun Chujo said with a pout. Lan Luomu smiled. Your goading method is useless against me. No matter what you say, I won't give in. But I can let you make the first move. Please. Lan Dimeo shook his head when he saw this. This unorthodox method could only be used once. Let's see, Lan Luomu was no longer fooled. This round, the little trash was bound to lose. However, he was still quite satisfied in his heart. Even if he lost, the three branches would still be tied. This result was still acceptable. Seeing that it was useless to provoke him, Yun Chujo did not waste any time and immediately attacked Lan Luomu. Lan Luomu learned from Lan Lucheng's lesson and directly released his spirit wolf. The spirit wolf not only blocked Yun Chujo's palm wind, but also struck at Yun Chujo with its claws. Yun Chujo hurriedly dodged to the side. Lan Luma's palm wind had arrived again. She hurriedly dodged again, but the spirit wolf's bloody mouth was waiting for her at the side. For a moment, Yun Chujo was forced into a fluster and was in a sorry state. Lan Dimeo's brows were tightly knitted. From the looks of it, at most a few more breaths, that little trash would definitely lose. These people were obviously making sarcastic remarks. Everyone knew that even if Yun Chujo released her Goei Batsao, it would be useless. Moreover, releasing a spiritual beast would consume a lot of spiritual power. It would be better not to release a useless spiritual beast like that. Yun Chujia's eyes darkened. Although the Goei Batsao was useless, she still had a small purple needle. Thinking of this, she raised her hand and several small purple needles shot towards Lan Luomu and the spiritual wolf respectively. Whether it was Lan Luomu on the field or the audience watching the battle, they were all dumbfounded when they saw the small purple needles that Yun Chujo had conjured. What was this thing? Was it a low-level spiritual power materialization spell? Even if it was a low-level spiritual power materialization spell, shouldn't it also conjure swords? Why was this Yun Chujo conjuring embroidery needles? Did she come to embroider? Chapter 4767, Immortal Lu Bone Repairing Ointment. Lan Luomu was stunned for a moment before a trace of disdain appeared on the corner of his mouth. This Yun Chujo was probably at her wit's end, so she could only release these useless embroidery needles. He waved his hands and easily caught more than 10 small purple needles. The spiritual power giant wolf also used its claws to catch the small purple needles that were shot at it, revealing an expression of disdain similar to Lan Lumas. Yun Chujo, you don't have to use such a small trick to embarrass yourself. I'll return these needles to you right now. Boom. Boom. Boom! Lon Luma's words were interrupted by several explosions, followed by Lon Luma's miserable screams. Even though Yunchujia's spiritual power was much weaker than his, and even though the power of the small purple needles was limited, he still had more than 10 small purple needles in his hands. Such a series of explosions was enough to make him suffer. Lon Luma's hands were badly mutilated from the explosions. Some of his fingers were even broken, and he let out a shrill cry. The claws of the giant silver wolf were also destroyed. As Lon Luomu cut off the supply of spiritual power, it could only disintegrate unwillingly. Second Elder Lon Deshan's expression changed drastically. This broken finger was much more serious than spitting out blood. If he delayed any longer, Lon Luma's hand would be crippled. Immediately, he rushed to Lon Luomu and asked someone to reattach the severed finger. Then, he applied a black ointment on the wound. Hei Xinjiu moved to the side and was surprised to find that not only was the severed finger reattached in an instant, even the severed finger was regrowing flesh at a speed visible to the naked eye. This fellow's eyes lit up when he saw the ointment in Second Elder's hand. This ointment was too magical. The strange grass in her dantian shook its leaves in disdain. What was so magical about this? As long as there was enough medicine, it could grow back even if her leg was broken. Of course, Hei Xinjiu did not know what the Guai Chao was thinking. The guy secretly squeezed in front of the second elder, wanting to see what the black ointment was. Lon Luomu, who was slightly better, saw Hei Xinjiu at first glance. He immediately gritted his teeth and said, "Yunchujiu, good, very good. Just you wait." Yunchujiu stared at the bottle of black ointment and said lightly, "I didn't ask you to take it with your hands. How can you blame me for your carelessness? Besides, haven't your fingers already grown back? You should thank me instead of the old ones." As he said that, he touched Lon Luma's hand, which made Lon Luomu scream in pain. "Bitch! You're courting death," Lon Luomu said with bloodshot eyes. The second elder beside him quickly said, "Calm down. If your emotions fluctuate too much, it will affect the efficacy of the immortal Lu bone healing ointment." The second elder looked at Yunchujiu coldly. His eyes were full of warning and threats. Yunchujiu pouted and slipped away. This guy was happy in his heart. She didn't touch Lon Luomu just now because she wanted to dip some immortal Du bone strengthening ointment in it. This guy fed the ointment to Guai Chao and asked it to quickly research the formula. Although her abnormal physique probably didn't need this ointment, it might be of great use in the future. Other things aside, looking at the second elder's precious appearance, this immortal Du bone augmentation ointment was definitely worth a lot, and it was very rare. If she could learn how to concoct it, she would have a golden path. Chapter 4768, Strive to not be so useless in the future. Just as Hei Xinjiu was thinking happily, she heard Lan Dimeo say in a never-before-heard kind tone, "Little Jiu, come here." Yunchujiu hopped to the front of Lan Dimeo and said with a smile, "Uncle, Grandpa, I didn't embarrass you, did I?" Lan Dimeo could not stop smiling. Not only did he not embarrass himself, he was too proud. Although he knew that Yunchujiu didn't rely on her true ability to win, and she was always going the other way, the process wasn't important, but the result was. Although the competition didn't involve the distribution of benefits, looking at the depressed faces of Lan Deguang and Lan Deshan, it was really refreshing. In the past, when Lan Luochen was around, the big house was the only one that stood out. They could only compete with the second house for second place. This time, they actually won first place for the first time. It was really something to celebrate. Lan Dimeo nodded his head in praise towards Yunchujiu. "Little Jiu, you did very well, but you can't be arrogant. You have to keep up the good work, understand?" "Great uncle, I understand. I will definitely study hard and strive to not be such a waste in the future," Hei Xinjiu said obediently. When everyone heard this fellow's words, the corners of their eyes twitched. Initially, when she said that she was a waste, they thought that she knew her own limits. However, when they heard her say this now, they felt that she was mocking them. If she was trash, then wouldn't the defeated Lan Luocheng and Lan Luomu be even more trash? However, from the bottom of their hearts, they still did not take a liking to Yun Shujiu. They felt that she was just lucky. There would not be such a good thing next time. First Elder Lan Dimeo really could not stand Lan Dimeo's flamboyant manner. He snorted coldly and said, "Third brother, this is just a small competition. The main event is the half-year competition in a month's time. When that time comes, we won't be able to win by relying on some petty tricks." Lan Dimeo smiled and said, "Big brother, what you said makes sense." However, this time, Luo Han couldn't make it to the small competition because he was on a family mission, but he could make it to the big competition. "However, I heard that Luo Chen has been locked up for half a year by you. I'm afraid he won't be able to make it to the big competition. Big brother won't let Luo Chen out just to win, right?" The expression of the first elder became even uglier. He originally intended to release Lan Luochen to participate in the grand competition in advance, but after being ridiculed by Lan Dimeo, he could only say against his heart, "Of course not. Even if Luochen doesn't participate, our great house can still win. Then we'll wait and see when the time comes." Lan Dimeo said with a fake smile. He Xinjiu found Lan Dimeo very pleasing to the eye at this time. He was really her great uncle. While He Xinjiu was thinking, she felt a few hostile gazes. She turned her head and saw Lan Luocheng, Lan Luomu, and some other people looking at her coldly. Yun Shujiu curled her lips indifferently. Her current goal was to cling tightly to Lan Dimeo's thigh. As for these little dregs, they were her stepping stones. After returning to the third room, Lan Luofang said to Yun Shujiu worriedly, "Why do you have to compete with them? Can't you just admit defeat? They hate you now. When the competition comes, they will definitely think of a way to kill you. You should know that during the competition, no one will care even if you are dead." Yun Shujiu bared her little white teeth at Lan Luofang. "What are you afraid of? Don't I still have Goei Batsao?" Chapter 4769. Touching Guai Chao. Lan Luofang said exasperatedly, "Forget it. What use is that lousy grass of yours? It's not as useful as the fire butterfly that Lan Luofang transformed into." "Who said that? My Goei Batsao is amazing. I even specially wrote a song for it." Yun Shujiu said with a smile. "Wrote a song? What song?" Lan Luofang asked suspiciously. Yun Shujiu cleared her throat and began to howl. "There's no fragrance of flowers, no tree height. I'm a grass that no one knows. I'm never lonely, never troubled. Look, my companions are all over the world." Lan Luofang's face was stiff. Was this guy bored? He actually wrote a song for her lousy Goei Batsao. After Yun Shujiu finished singing, Lan Luofang asked suspiciously, "Did you really write this song?" He Xinjiu would never admit that she was just a song porter. She said shamelessly, "Yes, am I very talented? Do you admire me very much?" Lan Luofang curled her lips. "All right, don't talk about these useless things. In short, you better be prepared. Otherwise, you won't even know how you die. Oh right, don't worry about your talismans and chili noodles. These things are not allowed to be used." Lan Luofang's words were like a bucket of cold water that instantly drenched He Xinjia's heart. This time, she deliberately did not use the talismans and chili noodles to save them for the grand competition. She actually did not allow them to be used. Lan Luofang saw her half-dead appearance and sighed. "So, I advise you to use this period of time to train hard to transform into a supplementary spiritual beast. Otherwise, your little life will definitely be lost." Lan Luofang was not worried about her own life. Because with the protection of Jia Shi, even Lan Luoyen would not dare to kill her. He Xinjia's heart was filled with bitterness. She wanted to transform into other spiritual beasts, but she could not do so except for Goei Batsao. She missed De Hua so much now. It was all the fault of Go Wei Ba. What He Xinjiu did not know was that ever since the Guai Chao and her Dantian heard He Xinjiu sing Guai Chao, the entire plant had fallen into a state of bewilderment. No fragrance of flowers. No tree height. Grass that no one knows about. Woo woo, what you said was too damn right. Since she treated me so well, I should return the favor. Is it a competition? When the time comes, I'll let those idiots see how powerful Go Wei Ba dog tail is. Yun Shujiu didn't know what Guai Chao was thinking. After returning to the courtyard, she cupped her chin and thought about how to deal with the competition. She couldn't use talismans or poison, and she couldn't reveal her foolishness either. What other trump cards did she have then? It was a pity that ever since she left the Nameless Sword sect, those drifters hadn't come out from between her brows. It was probably because this place wasn't suitable for them to survive. Otherwise, she could have used the drifters to plot against those dregs. Thinking of the drifters, Yun Shuji's eyes lit up. Although her spiritual beasts were useless, she could make up for it with her swordsmanship. This was the saying, the east is not bright, the west is bright. Thinking of this, Yun Shujiu immediately took out an immortal sword from her storage ring and brought it into the courtyard. Although this immortal sword of the Chongshao continent was considered precious, it would not attract the attention of others. That was why this fellow dared to bring it out openly. Hong Ling and the other two were working in the courtyard. When they saw Yun Shujiu coming out with a sword in her hand aggressively, they were so scared that they immediately knelt on the ground. Could it be that this ancestor was going to kill again? Chapter 4770. From lowly 1 to 49. Yun Shujiu looked at the three people kneeling on the ground in confusion. To be honest, she just wanted to practice her swordsmanship. Was there a need to be so scared? However, her heart moved and she shouted sternly, I can't tell anyone about my every move in the courtyard. If I find out that someone is cheating, I'll kill her. Do you hear me? Hong Ling and the other two did not dare to say no. They nodded their heads in fear. All of you, get up. Don't worry. As long as you are obedient, such a kind and good master like me will not mistreat you. Yun Shujiu said with a smile. Hong Ling and the other two felt as if they were barking dogs. It would be a ghost if they believed you. If you are capable, don't cut the stone bench into two when you say it. Yun Shujiu continued, Lu Luo and Kai Yun, go outside and keep an eye out for me. Hong Ling, prepare some tea and pastries for me. I want to practice my swordsmanship. Lu Luo did not have any thoughts about Hong Ling gaining Yun Shuji's trust. She was not as brave as Hong Ling compared to following her ancestor out in fear. It was better to stay in the courtyard. After Lu Luo and Kai Yun left, Yun Shujiu narrowed her eyes as she looked at the immortal swords in her hands. These immortal swords were all shamelessly tricked back by her. Back then, she said that she would let them go free after leaving the ancient sword tomb. However, the continent had changed several times, and these immortal swords could not escape from He Xinji's hands. These immortal swords had also accepted their fate. So what if they did not accept their fate? They couldn't just run away on their own. Yun Shujiu counted and found that there were a total of 77 to 49 immortal swords left in her storage ring. Most of them didn't even have the chance to show their faces. What a waste of heaven's gifts. Yun Shujiu felt that she had to compensate them, so she decided to give them a good name. When the immortal swords heard that Yun Shujiu was going to give them names, they all shivered. With this guy's naming skill, it must be a tragedy in the human world. What Xiao He, Xiao Hong, De Hua, Butt Face, oh God, could they refuse? Yun Shujiu rubbed her chin and thought for a while, then said excitedly, from now on, you guys will be little bitch number 1, little bitch number 2, little bitch number 3, little bitch number 1 to little bitch number 4. 9 only had one thought at this time, beg for quick death. The majestic immortal sword was finally called Little Slut by others. Just how despicable were they? She was naturally practicing half a set of sword techniques that she had learned on the stone wall. Although it was only half a set, she felt that if she used it properly, she should be able to achieve a surprise victory at the crucial moment. Unfortunately, other than the chaotic sword intent, the fast sword intent, and the slow sword intent, she had yet to comprehend the fourth sword intent. Otherwise, her chances would be higher. After preparing the pastries and tea, Hong Ling stared blankly at Yun Chuzhou, who was already surrounded by the sword light. Her swordsmanship could actually be this magical? Hong Ling couldn't be blamed for making a fuss. It was mainly because in the Chongshao continent, cultivators looked down on this kind of cultivation method, which relied on external forces. Therefore, even if someone used a sword, their level was very ordinary. Moreover, Yun Chuzhou used a sword technique that had long been lost on the stone wall, which was so mysterious that it surprised Hong Ling. After Yun Chuzhou practiced the sword technique once, she said to Hong Ling, "Come, use your full strength to attack me. If you're just going to brush me off, HMPH." Hong Ling did not dare to disobey and could only release her spiritual fire crane. The fiery red fire crane pounced fiercely at Yun Chuzhou. Hong Ling was on tenterhooks. If her spiritual fire crane injured her, this ancestor would not punish her in anger, right? Chapter 47-71, The Cursed Guai Chao. Just as Hong Ling was thinking about it, she was surprised to find that Yun Chuzhou had a layer of barrier around her, and it was obviously not a spiritual energy barrier. Could this be the legendary sword intent? Because the cultivators in the Chongshao continent did not pay attention to practicing the sword, very few people could practice the sword intent. This was Hong Ling's first time seeing the so-called sword intent. However, could this sword intent block her attack? One had to know that her spiritual power was 2 levels higher than Miss Biao's. However, in the next moment, Hong Ling was surprised to find that the fire crane was blocked by the sword intent. Moreover, Yun Chuzhou's sword had already pierced through the sword intent and pierced towards the fire crane's eyes. Although the fire crane was only a spiritual beast that had been formed, if it was pierced by a vital point, its attack power would also be affected. Hong Ling hurriedly instructed the fire crane to dodge. At the same time, her palm wind also attacked that layer of sword intent. After a few rounds, the sword intent was broken. Hong Ling shook her head in her heart. Although this sword intent was powerful, its defensive ability was still not strong enough. Just as she was thinking about it, she was stunned to find that the fire crane's attack was actually blocked again. Could it be that Miss Biao had released 2 layers of sword intent at the same time? What made Hong Ling even more surprised was that after she and the fire crane had broken through the second sword intent, they were actually blocked by the sword intent again. A huge wave immediately rose in her heart. Even if she did not understand sword techniques, she vaguely knew that this was an amazing thing. Even if there were people who could comprehend several sword intents, but they could not release them at the same time, how could Miss Biao release 3 sword intents at the same time? Just as she was slightly distracted, she did not know how Yun Chuzhou did it. The sword in her hand was already pressed against her neck. Hong Ling, when you fight with others, do you often get distracted? Yun Chuzhou said unhappily. Hong Ling quickly said, "Miss, this servant was just too surprised. I won't do it again." Continue, start again. Yun Chuzhou could have subdued Hong Ling a long time ago, but she wanted to test the power of the sword intent, so she let Hong Ling attack for such a long time. Hong Ling practiced with Yun Chuzhou until the sky turned dark. Then, she heard Yun Chuzhou say lightly, "The sky turned dark so soon? How disappointing. Fortunately, there's no class tomorrow. Let's continue practicing in the daytime tomorrow." Hong Ling, who was gasping for breath, was speechless. Pervert. This cousin lady was a pervert. She was exhausted to death, but Yun Chuzhou, whose spiritual power was lower than hers, was fine. What the hell? After dinner, Yun Chuzhou lay on the bed and pondered. After fighting with Hong Ling, she felt that only 3 sword intents were still too weak. After all, Lan Lucheng's spiritual power was much higher than Hong Ling's. It would be great if she could comprehend a few more sword intents, even just one. Unfortunately, sword intents were like epiphanies. It was not something that could be comprehended at will. One had to have the opportunity to do so. Yun Shujo rolled her eyes. She could use the thunder spiritual power stored by the three foodies to try and break through. This way, she could also shorten the gap between her and Lan Luocheng. Thinking of this, Yun Shujo said to the three foodies in her dantian, "You guys use the thunder spiritual power to wash my dantian. I want to break through. Otherwise, if I die, you guys won't be able to recover either." Guai Chao desperately waved its leaves. Did it mean that with its heroic and invincible Go Weiba, there was no need for it to break through? It could completely crush those little dregs. Unfortunately, it couldn't speak. Yun Shujo misunderstood its meaning and thought that it couldn't bear to part with Lei Lingqi, so she scolded it. Guai Chao, it decided to feed its previous feelings to butt face. Chapter 4772 Heavenly Lightning has a special liking for me. The leaves of Guai Chao were twitching. It finally understood what it meant by not knowing how to appreciate a good person's kindness, HMPH. Sooner or later, this black-hearted Go Weiba would know the power of its dog tail. In the end, Yun Shujo forced the three foodies to spit out some of the power of lightning, rolling and crawling to break through to the seventh layer of the spiritual nirvana realm. She had discovered that as the level of her spiritual power increased, the power of lightning spat out by the three foodies was no longer enough to support her need for a breakthrough. The problem of lightning wilderness was a fatal one. Fortunately, she had just arrived, so Wu Yun of the Heavy Cloud Continent probably did not know about her yet. It was not bad to be able to trick a few lightning strikes and catch a few cloud wings. After all this, it was already the afternoon of the next day. Hong Ling and the other two knew that Yun Shujo was angry when she woke up, so no one dared to disturb her even though they did not see her leave the bedroom. Hong Ling was even more eager for Yun Shujo to stay in bed so that she wouldn't have to pull her to practice her swordsmanship again. The three of them were whispering in the courtyard when they saw Yun Shujo coming out while stretching. "Miss, you've broken through." "Congratulations, miss," Hong Ling said happily. Lu Luo and Kai Yun also quickly congratulated her. They thought that Miss was sleeping in, but it turned out that she was breaking through. Yun Shujo sighed. "What are you congratulating me for?" "I've only leveled up by one level," sigh. Hong Ling and the other two were dumbfounded. Was Miss possessed? What did she mean by, only leveled up by one level? Who didn't level up by one level? Could it be that they could level up several levels at once? Although the three of them were dumbfounded, they didn't dare to ask. Yun Shujo simply ate some food and sent Lu Luo and Kai Yun to stand guard outside the courtyard. Then, she dragged Hong Ling to start practicing her sword. This fellow discovered that after his spiritual power level increased, his sword intent also increased a little. Unfortunately, it only increased by one level. It would be great if he could be struck by lightning. At this moment, the sky suddenly darkened, and large chunks of dark clouds began to gather. Hei Shinjo was so happy that she was about to bloom. Whatever she thought, she would get it. Was she about to be struck by lightning? Ha ha ha. Hong Ling looked at Hei Shinjo, who was smiling foolishly. She was puzzled. Ever since Miss had broken through, something was not right. Could it be that she had gone mad? Hong Ling, when the lightning strikes later, you guys should hide further away so that you won't be affected. Hong Ling looked baffled. Miss, the heavenly lightning won't strike us. Why should we hide further away? Yun Shujo proudly straightened her back. This heavenly lightning is naturally aimed at me. I have a heavenly lightning spiritual root, so of course I have to be struck by lightning. Hong Ling, was it a glorious thing to be struck by lightning? Was there a need to be so high profile? But Hong Ling's expression was a little stiff as she said, Miss, I'm afraid you've misunderstood. That heavenly lightning isn't here to strike you. Yun Chuzhou was stunned. It's not here to strike me? What kind of joke is this? The heavenly lightning has always been fond of me. If it's not here to strike me, then who is it? Who would dare to snatch the heavenly lightning from me? Hong Ling was completely speechless. Who would snatch the heavenly lightning that could kill someone? Miss, you might not know this, but there's a Mount Meru 300 miles away from the Imperial City. It will be struck by lightning almost every month. Bai Li said. Everyone has guessed that there is some heaven-defying treasure inside. However, after so many years, no one has discovered anything special. Instead, it has become very desolate because it is often struck by lightning. Yun Chuzhou was stunned at first, then she asked excitedly, You mean that there will be lightning every month? There is such a good thing? Hong Ling. Chapter 47-73. She had gone mad. Hong Ling had basically confirmed that her master had gone mad. How could any normal person think that being struck by lightning was a good thing? Even if she had a heavenly thunder spirit root, it should be to absorb the lightning element in the air. Could it be that she could also devour lightning? This was simply nonsense. Miss, are you alright? Do you feel uncomfortable somewhere? For example, do you have a headache? Hong Ling asked tactfully. Yun Chuzhou smiled so much that her eyes narrowed into slits. Of course I'm fine, and I'm doing really well. I'm going to Mount Meru for a walk now. Hong Ling was so frightened that she trembled. Miss, what did you say? I'm going to Mount Meru for a walk. You don't have to follow me. I'll go wherever there's thunder. He Xinzhou said and directly jumped out of the courtyard, disappearing without a trace. Hong Ling was on the verge of tears. Miss had gone mad. Completely mad. She couldn't care less about anything else and quickly chased her out. Unfortunately, when she reached the residence, she could no longer see Yun Chuzhou's shadow. She quickly came to see Lan Dimeo. Third elder, Miss Cousin has gone to Mount Meru. Lan Dimeo's head was buzzing. Because of the incident with Xiao Bai, his impression of Yun Chuzhou had changed a little. He didn't expect that this little trash didn't stop at all. She went to Mount Meru? Was she afraid that she would not die fast enough? Lan Dimeo's face was livid with anger. Why did she suddenly run to Mount Meru? Hong Ling did not dare to hide the truth and told him about the conversation between the two of them. Lan Dimeo frowned. Why did he feel that this little trash liked being struck by lightning? Could it be that because she had a heavenly lightning spiritual root, she was not afraid of being struck by lightning? How was this possible? Even if the heavenly lightning spirit root was special and was stronger than the average person's ability to resist lightning strikes, it would not be to the extent that she would act like a cat that cheated on her husband the moment she saw lightning strikes, right? Lan Dimeo waved his hand and let Hong Ling leave. Then, he paced around the room anxiously. The heavenly thunder at Mount Meru was terrifying. If he went, he would be sending himself to his death. As for whether that little trash lived or died, that would depend on her own luck. In any case, it was her own doing, and she could not be blamed on others. On the other side, the guards of the Imperial City looked at Yun Chuzhou as if she was an idiot as she left the Imperial City in high spirits. This young cousin of the Lan family must be out of her mind, right? She was heading towards Mount Meru. Was she going to court death? Yun Chuzhou did not care what those people were thinking and flew towards Mount Meru on her flying spirit tool. This fellow was burning with anxiety. In her eyes, the lightning and thunder were all hers. If she were to arrive late, wouldn't it be a waste of a heavenly gift? Just as she was approaching the edge of Mount Meru, the flying spirit tool began to descend uncontrollably. Only then did this fellow realize that Mount Meru was forbidden from flying. This fellow had originally wanted to summon little Wu Yun, but he was afraid of alerting the enemy, so he could only use sticky silk to bind the trees to slow down his descent. After this fellow landed safely, he ran towards the place where the dark clouds gathered. There were still quite a number of trees on the outskirts of Mount Meru. However, the deeper they went, the more desolate it became. There were charred marks all over the place. It was obvious that they had been struck by lightning. When Hei Shinjo saw the charred soil, she felt that it was too damn familiar. She was finally going to be struck by lightning. Just the thought of it made her laugh out loud. Little cuties, Fairy Gyo is here. Chapter 4774, Bullying the Clouds. Just as Hei Shinjo was thinking about it, she heard the rumbling of thunder in the distance. The guy's face immediately darkened. Who was stealing her thunder? But Face, who was in the spiritual beast bag, immediately said with a common hatred, "Little fairy, hurry up and take care of that idiot who stole your thunder. Doesn't he know that all the thunder in the world belongs to you, little fairy? How shameless." But Face, what you said makes sense. That idiot is too shameless. I'll go and ask for an explanation right now. Hei Shinjo quickened her pace as she spoke. If others heard the conversation between the man and the dog, they would be so angry that they would be amused. How dare you say that others are shameless? How come all the thunder in the world belongs to you? How shameless are you? After running for a while, Hei Shinjo saw a few purple heavenly lightning bolts striking down from the distance. This guy rushed up with a howl and got struck by the heavenly lightning as he wished. Comfortable. Comfortable. It's so comfortable. It's this long-lost feeling. It's so comfortable. Hei Shinjo said, intoxicated. Wuyun in the sky, where did this idiot come from? It had heard of people who picked up gold and silver, but this was the first time it had seen someone who picked up lightning. However, it felt that there was no need to argue with an idiot, and it was better to complete the mission. Therefore, it ignored Hei Shinjo and prepared to continue attacking its target. However, just as a few bolts of lightning struck down, it saw the little girl screaming and successfully intercepting it again. Wuyun was furious. It seemed that this stinky girl was either stupid or was sincerely looking for trouble. Since she was looking for death, then it couldn't be blamed. She should be struck to death first. Although she had a heavenly lightning spiritual root, a weak little chick like her would definitely be struck to death by dozens of heavenly lightning bolts. Thus, Wuyun kept striking down, thinking that this time, it would definitely turn that stinky girl into ashes. Master, what you said is wrong. How can I break through if I don't swallow more lightning? Besides, this isn't called fat, this is called being rich. Also, isn't Xiao Mogu also snatching the lightning from you? Why don't you say it? Master, you've changed, you old pervert who likes the new and hates the old. Only then did Wuyun see a Xiao Mogu next to the smelly girl. It was stretching its mycelium and swallowing the lightning that it struck down. It was really too shameless. Wuyun was exasperated and struck down again, wanting to chop the three perverts below into ashes. After a while, he found that the ugly bird and Xiao Mogu were gone, but the stinky girl below was still alive and kicking. She even gave him a thumbs up. It was too much. Wuyun had long forgotten about his goal. He only had one goal now, and that was to chop that stinky girl to death. If it did not kill her, it would not become a cloud. The dark cloud rumbled for more than 2 hours. Other than chopping off Hei Xinjia's hair, it did not have any effect on Hei Shinjo. Hei Shinjo rolled her eyes. Initially, she was worried that the heavenly lightning in the heavy cloud continent would be more powerful, so she did not dare to act rashly. However, from the looks of it, this dark cloud's level was not too high. Why not fish for a cloud wing to play with? Chapter 4775, Wuyun in shock. Hei Shinjo rolled her eyes. She staggered and mumbled, "Aiyo, my old waist. I'm afraid that I won't be able to hold on for much longer." Fortunately, this silly Wuyun is floating so high up, yet it doesn't know that the closer it is, the more powerful it will be. It's really stupid. Wu Yun, who was in the sky, chuckled inwardly when he heard that. This stinky girl still called it stupid? She was the stupid one. What she said made sense. It should have lowered its height a little. That way, its power would be multiplied. It would definitely be able to kill this stupid girl. Thinking of this, Wu Yun quickly descended, wanting to kill He Xingjiu completely. He Xingjiu stole a glance, and a wicked smile appeared on the corner of her mouth. Little thing, you've been tricked. Wu Yun quickly descended to a height of only 30 feet from Yun Shujiu. With a rumble, several heavenly thunders descended. Just as it was thinking that it could chop Yun Shujiu into ashes, it saw that stinky girl sitting on a little Wu Yun with something similar to a fishing rod in her hand rushing towards it. Wu Yun was instantly dumbfounded. Why did that stinky girl sit on a Wu Yun? How could this be possible? It must be a spirit tool similar to Wu Yun. But, what was she doing with that fishing rod in her hand? Just as Wu Yun was puzzled, Yun Shujiu had already flown to its front on the little black cloud. With a click, she hooked a cloud wing and pulled it down desperately. Wu Yun's claws were instantly numb. Oh my god. This stinky girl actually wanted to snatch its cloud wing. Was she crazy? Wu Yun had never heard of anyone daring to snatch Wu Yun's cloud wings. It was simply outrageous. Moreover, the cloud wings were refined by Wu Yun. How could she pull them over with brute force? What wishful thinking. Wu Yun thought of this and suddenly started to shake, wanting to get rid of He Xingjiu. Furthermore, he gathered all the power of lightning onto a bolt of heavenly lightning and struck it down towards He Xingjiu. He Xingjiu never dreamed that Wu Yun would put everything on the line. Her attention was focused on the cloud wings, but she was struck by the heavenly lightning. The fellow spat out a mouthful of blood, which happened to hit the cloud wings that were hooked. At this moment, Wu Yun also broke free from the grip of the cloud fishing rod. He looked at Yun Shujiu lying on top of the little cloud proudly. He snorted coldly in his heart. Although he no longer had the power of lightning to deal with this stinky girl, she had already been struck until she vomited blood. She would probably die very soon. He still wanted to attack his cloud wings? He was really courting death. Just as Wu Yun was thinking about it, he was stunned to find that one of his cloud wings was drifting towards the little girl. Wu Yun was so angry that he almost died. Whose cloud wing are you? Are you blind? He quickly controlled the cloud wing with his spiritual perception, only to discover that the cloud wing had lost the connection with his spiritual perception. What? What was going on? At this moment, He Xingjiu's internal injuries had been mostly healed by the Guai Chao. The guy almost cried out in laughter when he saw the cloud wing flying toward him. Haha. Haha. Did you see that fool in the sky? Your cloud wings have already turned over to the light. If you have the ability, you can strike me again. If you don't strike me, you are a grandson. Wu Yun was angry and afraid because he felt that the cloud wings had suddenly lost its spiritual sense connection with him. It was highly likely that it was related to the stinky girl's blood. If that was really the case, if this stinky girl spat out another mouthful of blood, wouldn't his cloud wings belong to her? Chapter 4776 What was the secret of her blood? The more Wu Yun thought about it, the more frightened he became. He could not care less about He Xingjiu's provocation and quickly floated away. He Xingjiu handed the newly obtained cloud wings to little Wu Yun to refine. She held her chin and pondered. The last time she fished for the cloud wings, it seemed to be because her blood had gotten onto the cloud wings. Could it be that her blood was unusual? The guy then recalled the exquisite coffin that was found in the underground of the residence of reflection in the Chaos Origin sect. The exquisite coffin was made of a trunk of a citron and was suspended in midair with 4 chains. When her blood soaked into the stone slab, the chains that had turned into 4 black flood dragons broke. Could it be that there was something special about her blood? Also, why did the pretty boy's injuries improve after drinking her blood? especially when it had a certain suppressive effect on the cold poison? What exactly was the mystery in her blood? Thinking of the big coffin, and then thinking of the grass that was swallowed by the strange grass in the big coffin, what exactly was that grass? Just as this fellow was puzzled, he felt the spiritual power in his body begin to swell. It was actually about to break through again. He quickly sat down cross-legged and released a few dumb cubs to warn himself before he started to break through again. A moment later, Yun Chuzhou opened her eyes. Her spiritual power had also broken through from the 7th level to the 9th level of the quietness of the soul. Although he was not very satisfied, he thought that it was not bad to be able to break through 2 levels in such a short period of time. Moreover, she had also caught a cloud wing. It was simply wonderful. Yun Chuzhou originally wanted to find out what was attracting the heavenly lightning here, but this fellow thought about it again. This thing was placed here to lure the lightning. She could not be foolish enough to kill the goose that laid the golden egg. Hence, this fellow did not stay in Mount Meru for long. After leaving the no-fly zone, she boarded the flying spirit tool and prepared to return to the imperial city. Of course, this fellow had already wrapped her head with a handkerchief. She had no choice. Who asked her to be struck bald again? Unfortunately, as it was already midnight, the city gates of the imperial city had long been closed. This fellow could only look at the city and sigh. She decided to take a nap on the flying spirit tool and wait for the city gates to open in the morning before entering the imperial city. Just as this fellow was about to command the flying spirit tool to fly further away, she suddenly discovered that the words "King" and "City" on the city gate plaque were emitting a faint light, as if there was something glowing within. Just as Yun Chuzhou was puzzled, the black bead in her dantian suddenly began to jump. Yun Chuzhou was in so much pain that she grinned. "Glass ball, what are you doing now? I've already fed you so many beads before, aren't you satisfied yet?" The black bead transmitted an anxious emotion to Yun Chuzhou, the same emotion as every time she found the bead. Yun Chuzhou could not help but squint her eyes. Could there be a bead hidden in the plaque? It was likely that the bead was sealed in the plaque by some method. Previously, there was no aura leaking out during the day, but at night, the formation weakened, so the black bead could sense the existence of the bead. Then, the question now was, how could she get the bead out without alerting anyone? No matter how she thought about it, this fellow felt that there was no possibility. Not to mention her, even Lan Dimeo had no way to take out the bead without alerting the guards. If there were only 1 or 2 guards, she could have gotten the nightmare beast to weave a dream for them. However, there were hundreds of guards patrolling the city wall. Based on the nightmare beast's current ability, it was impossible for Meng Yanshou to do so. Chapter 4777 Xiao Jiu bangs on the city gate. Yun Chuzhou wanted to ignore the black bead, but the black bead was determined. It kept jumping in He Xinjia's dantian. Even if He Xinjiu threatened it to destroy its dantian, it would not give up. Yun Chuzhou was angry. She now felt that compared to the unstingy black bead, the Guai Chao had become much cuter. Guai Chao sensed He Xinjia's thoughts and kept trying to act cute. However, it was different from that stupid black bead. It had no other choice. It had its own difficulties, it would never go against He Xinjia's wishes. This fellow had selectively forgotten how it had tormented He Xinjiu back then. All it wanted was to fight for the favor. Yun Chuzhou could not do anything about the black bead, so she could only roar, "All right, I'll think of a way to help you get that broken bead." "Stop it," the black bead finally stopped after hearing that. However, the entire bead was emitting a deep light with a strong warning. He Xinjiu wanted to cry. What kind of sin had she committed? The good things that other people obtained could help their master, but these foodies only knew how to trick her. They were really fucking aggrieved. She could complain, but since she had already promised the black bead, she had to think of a way to get the bead inside the plaque. What should she do? If she went to pick the plaque, she would probably be caught by the guards before she even touched the plaque. luring the tiger away from the mountain? She was alone. How could she do that? It would not work. Hei Xinjiu sighed and said, "Glass ball, it's not that I don't want to help you. I can't think of a good idea no matter what. I'm so worried that I want to hit the wall." Wait, hit the wall? Hei Xinjiu's eyes suddenly lit up. She immediately commanded the flying spiritual device to hit the city gate at the fastest speed. The citizens of the imperial city who were sleeping soundly heard a loud bang and immediately went into chaos. The people rushed out of the houses and onto the streets. Some of them had disheveled hair, some were only wearing undergarments, some were barefoot, and some were even wrapped in sheets. The most tragic thing was that the customers of Spring Fragrance Restaurant who were having fun were immediately shocked by this sound. Oh my God, what happened? Did the earth dragon turn over? It doesn't look like an earth dragon turning over, but more like a demonic beast riot. Could it be that there are high-level demonic beasts charging at the city wall? Forget it. Why would the demonic beasts suddenly riot? It definitely isn't a demonic beast riot. Lan Dimeo, one of the 3 sons of the Lan family, was also startled by the loud noise and sat up from his bed. He put on his clothes and walked into the courtyard. Chapter 4778, Black Charcoal Ball. Just as Lan Dimeo was in a daze, he was suddenly stunned. Wait, that little trash wasn't struck to death by the heavenly lightning? However, now wasn't the time to consider whether she was dead or not. How did this little trash hit the city gate? Moreover, even if she hit the city gate, there shouldn't be a fire, right? Lan Dimeo didn't have the time to ask any more questions and hurriedly left the 3rd room. The streets were full of people. Lan Dimeo had no choice but to jump up and arrive at the south city gate from the roofs of the houses. When Lan Dimeo arrived, the fire had already been put out. Just as Lan Dimeo was about to ask the leader of the guards about the situation, he saw a black charcoal ball pounce over. Great uncle. Great uncle, you're finally here. You scared me to death. I almost couldn't see you. Lan Dimeo took a closer look. This black charcoal ball was none other than that troublemaker Yun Shujo. However, he didn't know whether it was burned by fire or not. His hair and eyebrows were gone, and his face was also pitch black. He looked just like a black charcoal ball. Lan Dimeo was angry and amused at the same time. He shouted, "What exactly happened?" Yun Shujo said pitifully, "Great uncle, I went to Mount Meru just because I was curious, right? But when I came back, my flying spirit weapon suddenly failed, and I crashed into the city gate. It was fine if I crashed into the city gate, but I don't know how it started. Sigh, I shouldn't have bought this flying spirit weapon with a reduced price at that time. I was really greedy and suffered a great loss." Lan Dimeo was skeptical, but he thought that the people of Towering Sky Continent were not knowledgeable, so it was possible that the quality of the flying spirit weapon was not good. Right then, someone leaked the news. Almost immediately, everyone in the capital city knew that Hei Xinjiu was the cause of the disaster, and they were all in an uproar. Where is Yun Shujo? Even if she is the cousin of the Lan family, she can't crash into the city gate. Although the emergency plaque was not burnt, I heard that some of the corners were burnt. It's really too hateful. That's right. The Lan family is such a big aristocratic family. They must give us an explanation. We demand that the perpetrator be severely punished. Lan Dimeo frowned. He knew that his sworn enemy must have sent someone to fan the flames. Otherwise, the news would not have spread so quickly. Furthermore, without anyone leading the way, the citizens of the imperial city would not dare to challenge the Lan family. He thought for a moment and said to Yun Shujo, "Go back and hide." Before Lan Dimeo could finish his sentence, Hei Xinjiu had already disappeared. Lan Dimeo took a deep breath as his head buzzed. This troublemaker was causing more and more trouble. First in the 3rd room, then in the Lan family's ancestral residence. Now, she had directly knocked down the city gates of the imperial city. This time, he might not be able to protect her. After such a huge incident, even if it was to appease the anger of the people, the old ancestor would still take care of her. Hei Xinjiu returned to her courtyard with her face covered in dust. Hong Ling and the other two almost cried out when they saw Yun Chujia's ghastly appearance. Did their miss crawl out from the stove? Yun Chujiu waved her hand and let them rest. Then, she went into her bedroom. After bathing, she took out a small jade box. Previously, when the flying spiritual device crashed into the city gate, Hei Xinjiu asked the small flame to set a fire to fool people. Just as the guy was about to use the large kitchen knife to cut the signboard, the black bead reminded her that the bead was behind the signboard. Only then did the guy realize that the stone behind the signboard was different from the others. After taking it out, he found a small jade box inside. Chapter 4779, Anger of the People. Yun Chujiu opened the jade box while thinking. There was indeed a bead inside. Yun Chujiu was afraid that something might go wrong, so she immediately picked up the bead and swallowed it. To be exact, it was the bead that impatiently went into her mouth. The black bead immediately swallowed the bead, and then as if it was dead, there was no reaction. Hei Xinjiu was so angry that she was twitching. It was fine. What should she do? Tomorrow, the citizens of the imperial city would definitely come to the Lan family to seek justice. She had offended the eldest and second branch during the family competition. When that time came, those scum would definitely force Lan Dimeo to punish her severely. She was really worried to death. Hei Xinjiu held her chin and pondered for a long time, but she could not think of any good ideas. She simply lay on the bed, and went to sleep. Early the next morning, Hei Xinjiu was woken up by Hong Ling. Hong Ling knew that she was angry when she woke up, but she couldn't care less. She said anxiously, "Miss, something bad has happened. There are many people gathered outside our residence, and they are forcing Third Elder to hand you over." Hong Ling also found out that the disaster yesterday was caused by the ancestor in front of her. Oh God, what kind of ancestor did she follow? Why did she bump into the city gate for no reason? She really didn't want to cause any trouble on the ground, but only cause trouble in the sky. Yun Chujiu frowned and got up. She suppressed her anger and said in a muffled voice, "All right, I got it. I'll go to the gate to take a look." Hong Ling quickly tried to dissuade her, "Miss, if you show up, those people will definitely harm you. You can't go to the gate. You'd better go to Third Elder." Hei Xinjiu sighed, "Third Elder must be at the gate already." Hong Ling thought about it and agreed. After such a big incident, how could Third Elder sit still? Immediately, Hong Ling accompanied Yun Chujiu out of the courtyard. As soon as they left the courtyard, they saw Lan Luofeng walking over anxiously. When she saw Yun Chujiu, she gnashed her teeth and said, "Are you free? Why did you bump into the city gate? Besides, why did you run out of the city in the middle of the night yesterday?" Yun Chujiu glanced at her. "I don't want to talk now. Don't provoke me." Lan Luofeng was so angry that she was twitching. Just as she was about to argue with her, she saw Yun Chujiu's gloomy face and held it back. She followed Yun Chujiu to the door angrily. When Yun Chujiu reached the door, she looked out through the crack of the door. She saw that the originally spacious street outside the three houses of the Lan family had been completely blocked. Moreover, she couldn't see the end of the street at all. The entire street was probably filled with people. From time to time, people would shout things like, "The Lan family cannot protect criminals," and, "Hurry up and hand over Yun Chujiu." This fellow cursed in his heart. Didn't she just bump into the city wall? She was really making a mountain out of a molehill. Moreover, although she had set a fire, the signboard had only burned a small corner and the city wall had been slightly blackened. Did these people have to be so unforgiving? Lan Dimeo's eyes were bloodshot. It was obvious that he had not slept the night before. When he saw Yun Chuzhou acting so sneakily, he wished that he could kick her out so that she would not harm him again. Lan Luoshan watched from the side and sneered in her heart. This Yun Chuzhou really deserved it. This time, even her grandfather would not be able to protect her. At this moment, First Elder Lan Deguang and Second Elder Lan Deshun walked over accompanied by the housekeeper of the third house. Yun Chuzhou was stunned. It seemed that there was a secret passage between the three houses of the Lan family. Otherwise, these two old men would not have appeared in the third house out of nowhere. Before the second elder came close, he said, "Third brother, what are you still standing there for? Hurry up and hand over this troublemaker to appease the anger of the people." Chapter 4780 was too insulting. The second elder was in a good mood. Yun Chuzhou deserved to cause trouble. She deserved it. She really deserved it. Although no one dared to provoke the Lan family in the imperial city, it was impossible for them to provoke the public just because of Yun Chuzhou. Furthermore, the Lan family's sworn enemies were watching. Even if the third elder refused to hand her over, the old ancestor would not sit idly by. No matter what, he would give the people an explanation. This time, even if Yun Chuzhou did not die, she would still be skinned alive. Although the great elder did not say anything, it was clear that he was on the second elder's side this time. He agreed to hand Yun Chuzhou over, both in public and in private. Lan Dimeo looked conflicted. He naturally did not want to hand Yun Chuzhou over. It was not that he felt sorry for Yun Chuzhou, but his goal had not been achieved yet. If he handed Yun Chuzhou over and let someone kill him, wouldn't his efforts be in vain? At this moment, Yun Chuzhou pinched her nose and shouted sharply, "What? What did you say?" Yun Chuzhou went to the second branch? Yes, she felt that the third branch wasn't safe, so she went to the Lan family's second branch in the middle of the night yesterday. Everyone in the Lan family was dumbfounded as they watched Yun Chuzhou's self-directed and self-acting, especially the second elder, who was so angry that his nose almost went crooked. This damned girl was trying to divert the trouble? She was too despicable. Peach, her thoughts were simple. Those people outside would not be fooled at all. However, very soon, he heard someone shouting outside. No wonder the third branch of the Lan family did not move even after we argued for such a long time. It turns out that Yun Chuzhou has gone to the second branch of the Lan family. Come, let's go and surround the second branch of the Lan family. Hearing that, the second elder was so angry that he was twitching. He immediately opened the gate and shouted angrily, "Stop right there. Yun Chuzhou is here." Everyone's eyes immediately focused on the second elder and the people in the courtyard. As for He Xinzhou, she had shamelessly hidden behind Lan Dimeo the moment the second elder opened the gate. Lan Dimeo gritted his teeth and dragged He Xinzhou to the front, saying, "You are the one who caused the disaster. Go and settle it yourself." When the civilians saw He Xinzhou, they immediately became excited. "Yun Chuzhou, you are utterly heartless and have committed all kinds of evil. Yun Chuzhou, hurry up and apologize. Let us parade you on the street. Otherwise, we will not let you go." Yun Chuzhou looked at the angry crowd speechlessly. Utterly heartless and had committed all kinds of evil? Didn't she just knock down a city gate? Was there a need to be so uptight? Due to the guards of the three houses blocking them, although those people were cursing fiercely, they did not dare to really go forward and do anything to Yun Chuzhou. They could only hope that the Lan family would take the initiative to hand Yun Chuzhou over to them. Yun Chuzhou waited until the cursing had subsided a little before she said, "There are so many of you. You're so noisy that I can't hear what you're saying clearly. Come out a few of the leaders. Let's have a confrontation." The crowd's clamor instantly quieted down. Although they were clamoring happily, they were just joining in the fun. Besides, no one was stupid. If they stood out, what if the Lan family retaliated? Yun Chuzhou glanced at the crowd and pointed at a person. "Come, you." "Yes, it's you." Weren't you arguing happily just now? Come out, let's have a confrontation. The person who was pointed at by Yun Chuzhou immediately shrunk his neck and stammered, well, I remembered that I have something important to do at home. I'll leave first. After that, he squeezed into the crowd and ran away in a hurry. Chapter 4781 was too disappointing when Yun Chuzhou saw that the person had run away. She pointed at another person. Since he has run away, why don't you tell him? Weren't you also quite happy earlier? That person trembled. Although he had been following everyone to fish in troubled waters, now that he had been dragged out alone, he was terrified. I just remembered that I have something to do at home too. You can find someone else. After saying that, this person also slipped away. Yun Chuzhou pointed at more than 10 people in a row, and those people all used various excuses to slip away. Yun Chuzhou laughed coldly in her heart. She understood the hearts of people too well. These people were just relying on their numbers to be strong. When they were asked to come out alone, they were all terrified. Of course, these people that this guy pointed at were not just random people. They were all people who looked timid. Everyone had the mentality of following the crowd. When the rest of the people saw that the people that were pointed out had all escaped, they could not help but feel uncertain. All of them could not help but shrink back, afraid that they would be dragged out by Yun Chuzhou. When the second elder saw this, he could not help but secretly hate in his heart. These people were simply cowards. They were actually intimidated by this stinky girl. He wished that he could shout at those people and say, all of you can take care of this stinky girl. The Lan family will not care about her life or death. However, he could only think about it in his heart. He didn't dare to do so. After all, there was an old ancestor up there. At this moment, a Sanjiaoyan in the crowd snorted coldly and said, I'm here to confront you. The heavens are clear. I don't believe that the Lan family would dare to harm me just because I'm here to confront you. When the crowd saw that someone had stood up, they immediately clamored again to support the Sanjiaoyan. Yun Chuzhou looked at Sanjiaoyan for a while and said, all right, let's confront each other. Tell me what I'm guilty of. Sanjiaoyan sneered, you're asking the obvious. You crashed into the city gate for no reason last night and caused a fire. The whole city fell into panic. Shouldn't you pay for your crime? Hearing Sanjiaoyan's words, the people immediately agreed with him. They looked at He Xinzhou with a common enemy and wished that they could strangle her to death. Are you done? Yun Chuzhou asked with a faint smile. Sanjiaoyan snorted, yes, I'm done. Do you have anything else to say? The evidence is conclusive. Stop quibbling. Yun Chuzhou sighed faintly and then untied the handkerchief on her head. Everyone let out a wave of exclamations. There was no other reason. How did this Yun Chuzhou become bald? Did she know that she had sinned deeply, so she planned to become a monk and forgive her sins? As soon as Yun Chuzhou's words fell, everyone burst into a burst of mocking laughter. It was nothing more than saying that she deserved it and deserved it. Yun Chuzhou's face revealed an expression of grief and indignation. She raised her voice and shouted sternly, all of you shut up. I originally thought that I would receive your praise and gratitude for making such a huge sacrifice. I didn't expect that all of you would not recognize the kindness of a good person and humiliate me like this. All of you are really too disappointing. Everyone was dumbfounded. What did she mean? Why were they a little dumbfounded? Praise and gratitude? Did they mishear, or did Yun Chuzhou go crazy? Sanjiaoyan sneered, Yun Chuzhou, are you out of your mind? Do we have to be grateful to you for knocking down the city gate? Chapter 4782 The old ancestor told me to do this. When Yun Chuzhou heard Sanjiaoyan's words, she suddenly laughed. However, her laughter was very sorrowful, and there were even 2 lines of clear tears flowing down from the corners of her eyes. This time, not to mention San Jiaoyan and the commoners, even Lan Di Meo and the others were baffled. This stinky girl must have gone crazy from being too frightened, right? For a moment, other than Yun Chujia's sorrowful laughter, there was no sound at all. Everyone looked at Yun Chuzhou with a dumbfounded expression. Yun Chuzhou used her sleeve to randomly wipe her tears and then said, I originally didn't intend to say anything. Even if I have to bear the blame, I will admit it. However, since you guys are forcing me, I can only tell you the truth. Everyone widened their eyes and stretched their necks, wondering what Yun Chuzhou was going to say. I deliberately crashed into the city gate and set the fire on purpose, Yun Chuzhou said word by word. Everyone was so angry that they were twitching. They thought she would say something, but it turned out that she was talking about this. Was she deliberately showing off? Just as everyone was about to curse again, they heard Yun Chuzhou continue, the reason why I did this was because the old ancestor asked me to. The moment Yun Chujia's words left her mouth, Lan Di Meo almost fell to the ground. This troublemaker really dared to speak up. Was she afraid that she would not die? She actually dared to frame the old ancestor? Second elder sneered. Did she think that she could scare these people just by mentioning the old ancestor? How stupid. Sure enough, San Jiaoyan sneered and said, the old ancestor of the Lan family asked you to do it? Who are you lying to? How could the old ancestor of the Lan family let you do such a thing to provoke the public? Or did the Lan family take the people of the imperial city seriously because of their power? Yun Chuzhou glanced at him and said in a slightly cold voice, how could someone like you understand the foresight of our ancestor? Furthermore, who is the master behind you? You know very well what your goal is, to sow discord among the people of the imperial city. San Jiaoyan's pupils constricted and he said angrily out of embarrassment, I don't understand what you're saying. Don't talk about him. Didn't you say that it was the ancestor of the Lan family who made you do this? Then what is your goal? Yun Chuzhou saw San Jiaoyan's expression and her heart moved. She straightened her back and said, our ancestor ordered me to do this because he naturally had the intention to do so. The imperial city has always been in peace. It has been many years since there was a war or an emergency situation. That's why he ordered me to use a flying spirit tool to ram the city gate and cause a fire. Firstly, it is to test the reaction of the guards. Secondly, it is to sound the alarm for everyone so that everyone will always be on guard against danger. Yun Chuzhou said until here and sneered, as everyone has seen, the old ancestor's worry is not without reason. When you discovered the danger, you only panicked and did not follow the rules. You did not activate the city's protective array at the first moment of the incident, nor did you send people to search for suspicious people near the city. You also did not have any countermeasures. Think about it. This time, it was not a test arranged by the ancestor. If there really was an enemy attack or a demonic beast attack, I'm afraid that our imperial city would have been lost a long time ago. Everyone looked at each other when they heard Yun Chujia's words. Was this a drill arranged by the ancestors of the Lan family? Not to mention these commoners, even the Lan family members were a little confused. Could it really be arranged by the ancestors? Chapter 4783. They had wronged her. Yun Chuzhou raised her voice and continued, as for why I was chosen last night, this is also why our ancestor was so wise. As you all know, Mount Meru experienced a heavenly thunder yesterday. This is the time when everyone is most relaxed, so choosing this time to practice is the most effective. As for why the ancestor chose me, the reason was even simpler. I had just returned to the Lan family, so the ancestor naturally wanted to test me. I also wanted to use my meager strength to contribute to the Lan family and the people of the imperial city, so I took the risk of losing my life to complete this mission. I'm not a fool. Don't I know that if I do this, I'll be scolded like a dog? But why did I do this? Because I'm a member of the Lan family and a member of the imperial city. I would rather bear the blame and protect my family and the imperial city. Alright, that's how it is. You can decide what to do next. Yun Chuzhou stood with her hands behind her back after she finished speaking. Her small face was filled with stubbornness and pride, but her eyes were red. She held back her tears and did not let them fall. It made people's hearts ache when they saw her. The scene was dead silent. Could it be that the truth was like this? They had wronged this Yun Chuzhou. Not only was she not the main culprit, but she was also a hero who sacrificed herself for others. Even Lan Dimeo and the others felt a little nervous. Their ancestors had summoned Yun Chuzhou alone before. Could it be that they had arranged for her to do this? Everyone looked at Yun Chuzhou's expression. Seeing that there was only grievance and stubbornness on her face and not the slightest bit of guilt, they believed her even more. At this moment, Yun Chuzhou said to Zhu Yang, capture that San Jiaoyan and interrogate him. He must have been sent by other forces. When Yun Chuzhou said this, she did not avoid the crowd, so that San Jiaoyan also heard her. He subconsciously wanted to escape, but it was a pity that there were people here. How could it be easy to squeeze out? In his exasperation, he grabbed a woman and said viciously, "Get out of my way. If you don't let me go, I'll kill her." The crowd immediately fell into chaos, leaving an empty space. Yun Chuzhou raised her eyebrows. She deliberately let Zhu Yang capture San Jiaoyan. If she didn't do so, how could she force him into a desperate situation? As for the safety of that woman, she naturally did not need to worry. However, in order to increase his favorability, San Jiaoyan said angrily, "You actually kidnapped an innocent person for selfish reasons? Are you still a human? I'm willing to exchange with that girl. You can kidnap me. No matter what, I'm more valuable than her, right?" San Jiaoyan heard this and laughed sinisterly. "Since you want to die, I naturally won't stop you. Come over." Yun Chuzhou immediately went down the steps and walked toward San Jiaoyan. At this moment, the surrounding people were greatly shocked. How could such a kind person crash into the city gate for no reason? It seemed that they had really wronged her. At this time, Yun Chuzhou had already walked to San Jiaoyan and said, "I'm already here. Quickly let this lady go." San Jiaoyan rolled his eyes and threw a pill to Yun Chuzhou. "Eat this spirit-devouring pill first." Yun Chuzhou put the pill into her mouth without saying anything. The spiritual power in her body quickly dissipated. Chapter 4784. A kind and good girl. San Jiaoyan saw that Yun Chuzhou's body no longer had any spiritual fluctuations, so he pushed the woman away and reached out to pinch Yun Chuzhou's neck. Just as his hand was about to grab Yun Chuzhou's neck, Yun Chuzhou suddenly turned around and avoided his hand. San Jiaoyan did not have time to react when Zhu Yang and the other guards had already rushed up and surrounded her. He Xinzhou, on the other hand, fell to the ground with a thud, still in shock. The onlookers quickly helped her up. The guy stood up weakly and asked, "Where's the girl? Is she okay?" Seeing that she was still concerned about the safety of the hostage, the doubts that were lingering in their hearts were gone. Such a kind lady would definitely not lie. They were not human, yet they had wrongly accused her. It was really too stupid. That Lattice family was even more grateful towards He Xinzhou. They almost knelt down and kowtowed. Yun Chuzhou took the antidote that Lan Luofeng handed over and said, "This is what I should do. As long as you can understand our ancestors' painstaking efforts, I don't care what happens to me." Everyone was even more touched when they heard this. They would definitely not doubt her in the future. It was their fortune to have such a kind-hearted girl in the imperial city. At this moment, although San Jiaoyan had been caught by Zhu Yang and the others, he had already committed suicide by taking poison. Yun Chuzhou originally did not want to get anything out of him. The value of his existence was to help her clear her name. As for other things, they were not within her consideration. As this fellow had taken the antidote, he was alive and kicking again. He said to the crowd, "What I said just now was only a consideration from the old ancestor. Other than that, I also wanted to use this matter to uncover the hostile forces lurking in our imperial city. All of you are kind people. If you were not bewitched by these people, you would not have come here to denounce me. Hence, all of this is their fault. Don't worry, everyone. Our Lon family will definitely find out who is behind this and bring justice to everyone. Initially, the commoners felt a little uncomfortable because they had wronged Yun Chujo. Now that they heard her say this, they immediately felt relieved. They were all bewitched by someone and it wasn't their fault. As a result, everyone found Yun Chujo even more pleasing to the eye. It was really rare to see such a kind and understanding lady. When they saw her bald head again, the gratitude in their hearts was beyond words. An ant handed Yun Chujo a basket and said, "Miss Yun, there are some eggs here. Take them back to nourish your body." Actually, this ant had originally planned to use these eggs to hit Hei Shinjo when she was parading on the street, but now it had become a gift. When the others saw that Yun Chujo was willing to accept it, they immediately clamored and began to give her things. Fruits, cloth, and snacks. Although they were not very valuable, at least they could make up for their guilt. The Lon family members watched from afar with a dumbfounded look. Where was the public anger that they had promised? Where was the parading on the street that they had promised? Where was the unpardonable sin that they had promised? Why did it turn into a celebration? Why did Yun Chujo become a good girl that the people praised endlessly? On the other side, the Lon family's ancestor already knew everything, including Yun Chujia's every word and action. "Master, where did that Yun Chujo get the courage to tell such a big lie?" the masked man asked. The Lon family's ancestor smiled. That little girl's control over people's hearts can be said to be perfect. She predicted that I wouldn't expose her, and I really wouldn't expose her. Chapter 4785 was getting worse with each passing generation. "Master, your subordinate is slow-witted." "What do you mean?" The masked man was a little confused. If she had explained from the beginning, those angry people might not have listened to her. Therefore, she proposed to let the leader confront her at the beginning, which reduced everyone's momentum. Moreover, the rhythm of the matter was in her hands. In the process of talking to San Jiaoyan, she used her words to deceive him, which was why she deliberately let people catch him, forcing him to give himself away. The best thing was that she took the initiative to replace the hostage. This way, the people's suspicion was completely dispelled. After all, such a kind girl would not lie. At this point, the old ancestor could not help but laugh. He said, "This little girl is indeed full of twists and turns. No wonder the people of the Divine Devil Hall have been unable to do anything to her." "Master, then why is she so sure that you won't expose her?" "The reason is very simple. She helped me create an image of foresight and foresight. There is no need for me to expose her. If I expose her, it won't benefit me or the Lan family at all. Moreover, what she said makes sense. The Lan family has been at ease for too long since that incident. It's indeed time to give them a lesson." Speaking up to this point, he sighed. De Guang and the other two are more and more stupid. Especially that idiot Deshun. He actually took the initiative to push the little girl out. He's extremely stupid. The masked man was silent for a moment before saying, "Master, then, should we just let this matter go? That Yun Chujo shouldn't have rammed into the city wall for no reason. It's just that our people didn't discover any flaws. Should we capture her and interrogate her? That little girl is full of bad ideas. Even if you capture her, you won't be able to get anything out of her. Besides, she has other uses. At least, she can let those trash know their own capabilities." Sigh. Each generation is worse than the last. There was a hint of desolation in the old ancestor's voice. The masked man tactfully stopped talking and bowed before he left. On the other side, Hei Shinjo, who was receiving gifts, suddenly sat cross-legged and meditated. Under everyone's watchful eyes, she rose 2 levels from the 7th level to the 9th level. After opening her eyes, Hei Shinjo said excitedly, I suddenly had an epiphany just now. It's really good karma. Everyone agreed with her. They all felt that Yun Chujo was a kind and good girl. Otherwise, how could she have had an epiphany out of thin air? This was clearly a reward from God. Hei Shinjo felt that she had almost cleared her name, so she said a few polite words and walked in front of the Lan family. Although Lan Dimeo was still skeptical, he was not stupid enough to expose Yun Chujo. He smiled and said, What crime did you commit? Well done. You just broke through. Go back and stabilize your realm. If there's anything, we'll talk about it tomorrow. Yun Chujo got off the donkey, bowed, and left with Hong Ling. Second elder's face was very ugly, but he didn't know what to say, so he flicked his sleeves and left. First elder exchanged a few pleasantries with Lan Dimeo before leaving. Not long after Yun Chujo left, Lan Luofeng caught up with her with Zi Hua and asked in a low voice, Are you telling the truth? Chapter 4786 Being late. Yun Chujo rolled her eyes. Of course it's true. Otherwise, why would I knock on the city gate? Am not idle. Lan Luofeng pursed her lips. Although she felt that what Yun Chujo said was reasonable and logical, there was nothing wrong with it. However, she inexplicably felt that Yun Chujo was not the kind of person who would sacrifice herself for others. How could she do such a thing? Weren't you at the 6th level of the Nirvana stage before? Why did I see that you were already at the 7th level of the Nirvana stage before you had an epiphany? When did you break through? Lan Luofeng asked again. Why do you have so many questions? Don't tell me that I have to report to you when I have broken through. Yun Chujo said snappily. She was so sleepy, but this Lan Luofeng was still talking non-stop. It was so annoying. Lan Luofeng was so annoyed that she almost passed out. She stomped her feet and said, You really don't know how to appreciate a good person. If you have the ability, don't follow me in the future. After saying that, Lan Luofeng wiped her tears and ran away. Yun Chujo, she said it as if she was a heartbreaker. However, she seemed to have gone a little overboard just now. Forget it, I'll go back and catch up on my sleep first. Then, I'll go and coax her. Although this fellow thought so, he had forgotten about this matter after he woke up. As a result, he was late for the Spirit Energy class a day later. The reason was very simple. In the past, Lan Luofeng would always come over to invite her to the ancestral residence. However, Lan Luofeng was angry, so she did not call her. This fellow was tragically late. Looking at Hei Shinjo, who was sneakily trying to sneak in, guest Elder Shi's expression darkened slightly. Yun Chujo, why are you late? Yun Chujo giggled and said, Mr. Shi, didn't I crash into the city gate 2 days ago? I twisted my waist a little and it hasn't been very good. I'll be more careful next time and I won't be late again. Thinking of Yun Chujia's heroic deeds of sacrificing herself for others, guest Elder Shi's expression softened slightly. It won't happen again. Come in. Yun Chujo returned to her seat eagerly, looking like a well-behaved child. However, this fellow was only obedient for a short while before he sneakily stuffed a piece of candied fruit into his mouth and began to daydream. Just as this fellow was daydreaming, Lan Luofeng tugged at her. Just as this fellow was about to flare up, he heard guest Elder Shi say, Yun Chujo, didn't you hear what I said? Come over and demonstrate the small needles of spirit energy that you used the other day. Yun Chujo finally came to her senses. She walked to the front and shot out a few small purple needles at a big rock. Guest Elder Shi nodded slightly. Although the spirit energy needles that you conjured are a little weak, they still have some effects if you are caught off guard. However, the effects are still very limited. If you want to go further, you have to conjure other supporting beasts, understand? Yun Chujo nodded obediently, but she did not think much of it. Just like what she had said to Lan Luofeng before, a tiger was not afraid of a bunch of chicks. However, she did not have a tiger now, only a Go-Wei Butsao. After class, He Xingjiu was busy coaxing Lan Luofeng when housekeeper Su came looking for her. "Miss Cousin, the wind blade room has been repaired. A total of 2,100,000 high-grade spirit stones have been spent. Do you think you should give the remaining spirit stones to me?" Hearing that she was here to ask for money, Yun Shujiu immediately clutched her stomach. "Oh no, my stomach hurts. It hurts too much. Let's talk about it another day." After saying that, this fellow dragged Lan Luofeng and ran away. Housekeeper Su. Chapter 4787, Family Competition. He Xingjiu dragged Lan Luofeng out of the ancestral residence. Lan Luofeng's anger had long dissipated. However, due to her pride, she was kicked off the stage by Yun Shujiu. Time flew by and it was time for the Lan family competition. The content of each competition was different, but the rules of this year's competition were simple and crude. Everyone could compete on the stage, and they only had one chance to go on stage. The winner of the competition would be the one in first place. As for the other two departments, there was no need to split the second and third place, because they all received the same treatment, and the treatment was much worse than the first place. Therefore, all three departments wanted to win first place. The competition was hosted by Elder Ning of the Hall of Punishment. After explaining the rules, Lan Luoyen of the large department jumped onto the stage. She originally wanted to take revenge on Lan Luofeng, but her gaze fell on Yun Shujiu, who was munching on melon seeds. Last time during the family competition, this Yun Shujiu was in the limelight. Why not take care of her first before taking care of Lan Luofeng? Thinking of this, she said with disdain, "Yun Shujiu, come up. Let's have a competition." Everyone's gaze fell on Yun Shujiu. Their gazes were filled with schadenfreude. This Yun Shujiu had been in the limelight recently, but it was all because of her little tricks. She was going to be in big trouble this time. At this moment, everyone heard Yun Shujiu's careless voice. "You want me to go up and I'll go up? Then I won't have any face. You play by yourself. I have no interest in fighting with a little chick like you." Lan Luoyen was furious. "Yun Shujiu, I think you just don't dare to fight with me. You're a trash." "Yeah, I'm a trash. Are you jealous? Let me tell you, I earned this trash title based on my strength. It's not something you can get just because you want it," Yun Shujiu said righteously. The corners of everyone's eyes twitched. If others did not know, they would think that this trash title was something amazing. This guy's skin was really thick. It seemed like she did not plan to go on stage. However, even if she did not go on stage now, she would have to go on stage sooner or later. Moreover, the more people went on stage, the higher their spiritual power. She was so smart that she was fooled by her cleverness. Lan Luoyen saw that Yun Shujiu was not afraid of a dead pig, so she knew that it was useless to challenge her again, so she pointed out Lan Luofeng to come up and compete. Lan Luofeng was not as thick-skinned as Yun Shujiu. Moreover, she had He Xingjiu behind her, so she was not afraid of Lan Luofeng, so she went on stage. Just as the two were about to fight, someone exclaimed, "The ancestor is here." Everyone looked in the direction that person pointed, and indeed, they saw the old ancestor of the Lan family walking over with housekeeper Su. Everyone fell to their knees. Even Lan Luoyen and Lan Luofeng, who were on the stage, quickly got off the stage and knelt on the ground. Yun Shujiu pursed her lips and also knelt down. This fellow comforted himself. No matter what, she also had the blood of the Lan family flowing through her body. It was not shameful to kneel down to this old thing. The old ancestor waved his hand and signaled for everyone to get up. He merely said, "Continue," and sat on the chair that housekeeper Su had ordered people to prepare. After everyone got up, they obediently sat or stood in their own seats, afraid that they would anger the old ancestor. Only He Shinjo shamelessly came in front of the old ancestor and said with a smile, "Old ancestor, I haven't seen you for a long time. I found that you look even better. Housekeeper Sue, what are you waiting for? Hurry up and bring me a small pony." I accompany the old ancestor to relieve his boredom. Forget it. I usually don't ask others for help when I can do things on my own. After saying that, the guy took out a small pony from his storage ring and sat down at the place where the old ancestor took half a step back. He said shamelessly, "Old ancestor, look at how well behaved I am. Can I not compete on the stage?" Chapter 4788 was too shameless. The moment He Xinjia's words left her mouth, everyone was stunned. How thick-skinned was this guy? Not only did he shamelessly approach the old ancestor, he even had the cheek to say such words. And he was obedient? Just her? How could she have anything to do with being obedient? She had killed people and rammed into the city gates. How was she obedient? Shameless. The Lan family's ancestor was obviously shocked by this fellow's shamelessness. His face stiffened slightly. All the Lan family's juniors have to participate in the family competition. Naturally, you're no exception. Yun Chujo nodded. Oh, then let's compete. The main thing is that I'm so powerful. It wouldn't be good if I hit the confidence of the others. Everyone's nose almost went crooked from anger. They had seen shameless people before, but this was the first time they had seen such a shameless person. Where did you get the confidence to say such a thing in the 9th layer of the Nirvana stage? Yes, you defeated Lan Luocheng and Lan Luomu last time, but don't you know how you won? It was just an opportunistic move, plus Lan Luocheng and Lan Luomu were careless. Otherwise, they would have tortured you to death long ago. The old ancestor didn't say anything. He just picked up the teacup and began to drink tea. Seeing this, Elder Ning motioned for Lan Luoyen and Lan Luofang to return to the stage to compete. After the two of them went on stage, Lan Luofang said disdainfully, "Lan Luofang, I advise you to admit defeat now so that you won't embarrass yourself." What's so much nonsense? Are you still going to fight or not? Lan Luofang said impatiently. Alright, since you're looking for trouble, then I'll fulfill your wish. As Lan Luoyen said this, she directly released her spiritual energy goshawk and spiritual energy fire butterfly. Lan Luofang also released her spiritual energy tiger shark and giant fish. The four spiritual beasts started to bite each other. As for Lan Luoyen and Lan Luofang, they also started to fight each other. For a time, it was difficult to determine who was stronger. Yun Chujo saw the maid put a lot of pastries and spiritual fruits in front of the old ancestor. This guy shamelessly took a fruit and started to eat it. The old ancestor saw it and did not blame her. After a while, the old ancestor saw Yun Chujia's claws reaching for the pastries and could not help but twitch the corner of his eyes. This little girl was really thick-skinned. He Shinjo was eating happily when she suddenly heard the old ancestor ask her. This guy almost choked to death. This guy quickly picked up the teacup and poured himself a cup of tea. After drinking it, he said with a grievance, "Old ancestor, you scared me to death. I almost choked to death." The corner of housekeeper Zu's mouth twitched. Damn it. These pastries were originally prepared for old ancestor, okay? You're shameless enough to take them without asking? Now you blame old ancestor for scaring you. Are you shameless? Old ancestor was also angry and happy. However, before he could say anything, Yun Chujo pointed at the competition stage and said, "Sister Luofang will definitely win." Why do you think so? The ancestor frowned. With his eyesight, he could naturally tell who was stronger and who was weaker. Although Lan Luoyen and Lan Luofang were evenly matched now, Lan Luofang was obviously slightly stronger. How could Lan Luofang win? Yun Shujo said mysteriously, because I can calculate. I can calculate 500 years before and 500 years after, the old ancestor coughed unhappily. He Xinjiu quickly said, well, it's mainly because I have a good idea for Sister Luofang. Chapter 4789 The number 1 coward in the Chongshao continent. The old ancestor snorted coldly. Good idea? I'm afraid it's a bad idea, right? Yun Shujo laughed dryly. Whether it's a good idea or a bad idea, it's enough as long as it can win. The old ancestor glared at her, then his gaze fell on the competition stage again. Lan Luoyen could not help but feel a little anxious when she saw that she could not take down Lan Luofang after so long. The old ancestor was sitting below the stage. If she could show her face in front of the old ancestor, it would be of great benefit to her in the future. At this moment, Lan Luofang suddenly staggered. How could Lan Luoyen let go of such a good opportunity? She immediately stretched out her right leg to kick Lan Luofang. She wholeheartedly thought that she could kick Lan Luofang off the stage with this move. The old ancestor frowned. Can't you see through such an obvious trap? How stupid. Moreover, during the last family competition, Yun Shujo had already used a similar strategy. This Lan Luoyen actually did not learn her lesson. She was really too weak to help. Actually, if Lan Luoyen's opponent at this time was Yun Shujo, she might have been prepared for this move. However, in her impression, Lan Luofang had always been a simple-minded person without any shrewdness. Who would have thought that she would also use schemes and tricks? In addition, she was anxious to perform in front of her ancestor, so she was tricked. Just as Lan Luofang's leg was about to kick Lan Luofang suddenly jumped forward, grabbed Lan Luofang's right leg, and threw Lan Luofang off the stage. Although Lan Luofang was not injured, she was so embarrassed that she fainted. Someone immediately announced loudly, Lan Luofang wins. Although Lan Luofang won, she could not come down. As long as she went on the stage, unless she was defeated, she would fight until the end. This was also the reason why He Xinjiu did not accept Lan Luofang's provocation. She was not that stupid. Lan Luoyen from the main branch had lost face, so her biological sister, Lan Luoyu, stepped onto the competition stage. Lan Luofang knew that she was no match for Lan Luofang, so when her defeat was revealed, she directly admitted defeat. If it was in the past, she would definitely fight to the death, but ever since she got together with Yun Shujo, she seemed to have opened the door to a new world. Face was really useless, it was better to be tactful. When Lan Luofang saw that Lan Luofang had admitted defeat, her gaze fell on He Xinjiu, who was eating and drinking beside her ancestor. Her heart was filled with jealousy and hatred. Why did the ancestor favor Yun Shujo so much? Yun Shujo, I challenge you. Come up and accept the challenge. Lan Luoyu suppressed the jealousy in her heart and tried her best to speak in a calm tone. Yun Shujo didn't even lift her eyelids and said casually, I'm busy accompanying our ancestors to relieve their boredom. I don't have the time to talk to you. Go find someone else to compete with. Yun Shujo, don't say nice things. I think you just don't dare to accept the challenge. Lan Luoyu raised her voice, intending to goad her. Yes, you're right. I just don't dare to accept the challenge. I'm a coward. I'm the number 1 coward in the Chongshao continent. He Xinjiu said righteously. Lan Luo's tone was half dead, but Yun Shujo did not accept the challenge, so she could not forcefully drag her onto the stage. She could only choose Lan Luoxia, the weakest member of the second branch, so that she could win at least one match before going down. Chapter 4790 was really ambitious. The old ancestor was not interested in the competition that was about to start again. Instead, he looked thoughtfully at Yun Shujo, who was about to get the spiritual fruit, and then he closed his eyes to rest. Yun Shujo was a little scared by his glance. She withdrew her claws embarrassedly and thought to herself, could it be that this old thing's heart ached because she ate his food? Of course, this fellow knew that it was definitely not because of this. Then, what did this old thing mean by looking at her? The two foxes, one old and one young, were silently competing. The other members of the Lan family were all feeling anxious. Although it was that Yun Shujo who shamelessly took the initiative to approach the old ancestor did not scold her and even tacitly allowed her to eat the pastries and spiritual fruits. It was obvious that he looked at her differently. What right did she have? Could it be that this Yun Shujo was something special? Lan Luoshan bit her lips. The jealousy and hatred in her heart spread like poisonous weeds. Before this Yun Shujo came, that trash Lan Luofang was useless. The limelight of the three branches was all on her and her brother. However, ever since this Yun Shujo came, not only did she repeatedly get the limelight, but even Lan Luofang was not so stupid. She was really detestable. Unfortunately, as a member of the third branch, she had no way to challenge her. Otherwise, she would definitely teach this bitch a lesson. However, it did not matter. Even if she refused to go on stage, she would still have to go on stage in the end. Both Lan Luocheng and Lan Luomu would not let her off easily. A handsome man stood beside Lan Luoshan. His face was full of cold arrogance. He looked at the two people on stage with disdain. His opponents were only Lan Luocheng and Lan Luomu. The rest of them were just a bunch of trash. This person was Lan Luohan, Lan Lushan's biological brother, whom Lan Dimeo had high hopes for. He only had one goal this time, and that was to win the first place in this family competition. He wanted to let his ancestors know that he was not inferior to Lan Luochen. There were many more people in this family competition compared to the previous one. Moreover, every time they fought, they used their full strength. Therefore, the time taken was longer. Until the sun was west, only 1/3 of the people had completed the competition. Yun Shujo thought that she could go back to sleep, but she saw that no one had any intention to move. She could not help but feel puzzled and looked up at Housekeeper Su. Housekeeper Su, it's almost dark. Can today's competition be over? Let's continue tomorrow in the daytime. Chapter 4791, Debate. The old ancestor of the Lan family's face darkened. Call her over. Housekeeper Su immediately went outside the tent and said respectfully, Miss, the old ancestor is calling you over. After Housekeeper Su finished speaking, he realized that there was no movement inside the tent. He could only raise his voice and say, Miss, the old ancestor, he's calling his soul in the middle of the night. Get lost. Housekeeper Su, just as Housekeeper Su was at a loss, he saw Yun Shujo walking out of the tent with a smile. The old ancestor called for me? Let's go, don't make him wait so anxiously. Housekeeper Su, the speed at which his expression changed was really fast. However, he did not dare to say anything and pretended that he did not hear anything. Yun Shujo put away the small tent and hopped back to the old ancestor's side. The old ancestor looked at her. Where did you go? Old ancestor, I had some enlightenment after watching the competition on the stage, so I found a quiet place to experience it, Yun Shujo said seriously. Housekeeper Su, who was standing at the side, was stunned by this guy's shamelessness. He had obviously gone to sleep in, so how could he have any enlightenment? What a liar. Old ancestor raised his eyebrows. Oh. Then tell me what enlightenment you have? Hei Shinjo blinked her eyes and said, my knowledge is shallow. If I say it out loud, old ancestor, don't blame me for saying it wrong. Well, you can say it. I watched the competition today. Although they can basically transform into auxiliary spiritual beasts, their natal spiritual beasts are not that good. I think they are neglecting the important things. If they have the ability to transform into auxiliary spiritual beasts, They might as well train their natal spiritual beasts, Yun Shujo said. In fact, she did not intend to say it. She did not have a sense of belonging to the Lan family, so there was no need to say these things. However, now that she was asked by the ancestor, she could only use this as an excuse. The ancestor listened to Yun Chujia's words and frowned slightly. In the Chongshao continent, most people thought that the more auxiliary spiritual beasts they could transform into, the better. It was rare to hear her talk like this. Second Elder Lan Deshan had been listening attentively to the conversation between the old ancestor and Yun Chujo. At this time, he couldn't stand it anymore and interrupted. Yun Chujo did not want to be outdone and retorted, that is because the natal spiritual beasts are not strong enough. If they are strong enough, they can fight against 100 by themselves. No matter how many auxiliary spiritual beasts the opponent has, it will be useless. Moreover, every additional supplementary spirit beast will consume an extra portion of spirit energy. As time goes by, it will inevitably fall into a disadvantage. Lan Deshan was choked by her words and said angrily, "What you said is based on the foundation that the natal spirit beast is strong enough. It's simply illusory. Let's take you for example. Your natal spirit beast is a Gowei Batsao. If you don't transform into another supplementary spirit beast, just wait to lose your little life." Yun Shujo heard Lan Deshan mention Gowei Batsao and immediately felt a little frustrated. However, this fellow had always been a sore loser. She snorted coldly, "What's wrong with Gowei Batsao? It's just that I haven't finished training yet. It'll definitely surprise you in the future." Humph. A dead duck is stubborn. What nonsense. Ancestor, don't listen to her nonsense. She's just an ignorant girl. Lan Deshan said in a flattering manner. Chapter 4792, Two Foxes. The Lan family's ancestor looked at Lan Deshan indifferently. He did not comment and continued to watch the competition on the stage. Lan Deshan ate a soft nail and glared at Yun Shujo fiercely. He was secretly resentful. Did the ancestor become muddle-headed due to his old age? Otherwise, why would he favor this stinky girl so much? However, it did not matter. In the end, Luo Mu would take care of this stinky girl. The Lan family's ancestor didn't have a definite conclusion regarding the dispute between Yun Shujo and Lan Deshan. He felt that what he said made sense. However, this had to be determined by the person. If the natal spiritual beast didn't have any room for improvement, it naturally had to transform into a supporting spiritual beast. Correspondingly, if the natal spiritual beast had greater potential, then it had to focus on improving the combat strength of the natal spiritual beast. However, for a little girl like Yun Shujo to think of this, it was not bad. However, according to the news, wasn't her natal spiritual beast a pig? How did it become Gowei Batsao? Or was this little girl hiding her strength, and in fact, this Gowei Batsao was just a supplementary spiritual beast? The more the old ancestor thought about it, the more he felt that his guess was right. This little girl was full of bad ideas, so she must be hiding her strength. He reckoned that when she went up on stage later, she would use her true natal spiritual beast. However, according to her character, she would probably just give up perfunctorily. He had to think of a way to make her give it her all. Thinking of this, he turned his head to look at Yun Shujo. His nose was almost crooked from anger. He saw that little girl sitting on the small pony. Her head was actually falling asleep bit by bit. How big was her heart? For cultivators, it wouldn't be a problem even if they didn't sleep for 3 to 5 days, let alone one night. This little girl was too lazy. At this moment, Hei Xingjiu lost her balance and fell to the ground. She curled up into a ball and continued, sleeping. The old ancestor was speechless and simply ignored her. Seeing that there was no movement, Hei Xingjiu took out a blanket from her storage ring and wrapped herself up like a dumpling and continued to sleep. Before she fell asleep, a thought flashed through her mind. Why was she always sleepy recently? What the hell? The Lan family members looked at Hei Shinjo, who was like a cocoon beside the old ancestor. Their hearts felt like they were crying dogs. This was a family competition. Hei Shinjo slept until the next morning, and the competition on the stage was still ongoing. This fellow stretched his back and leaned in front of their ancestor, saying, "Ancestor, you must have not eaten breakfast yet, right? Housekeeper Sue, quickly get someone to send breakfast to our ancestor. You are too blind." Housekeeper Sue was so angry that he almost vomited blood. Send breakfast to the old ancestor? I'm afraid it's because you want to eat it. The old ancestor would abstain from grains most of the time and basically had no need for appetite. How could he eat breakfast? Seeing that housekeeper Sue did not move, Hei Shinjo curled her lips and took out a plate of meat buns from her storage ring and handed it to the old ancestor. "Old ancestor, do you eat buns? The thin skin and filling are mostly meat. They are delicious. You eat them yourself." The old ancestor said lightly. Yun Shujo thought, forget it if you don't want to eat them. Therefore, this guy was eating meat buns while watching the competition on the stage. The reason why this guy was acting like this was to test the true intention of the Lan family's old ancestor. Unfortunately, he didn't get anything. He cursed in his heart, he is indeed an old fox. He is really difficult to deal with. The old ancestor used the corner of his eye to glance at Yun Shujo, whose eyeballs were rolling around. He found it funny in his heart. A little girl still wanted to play tricks on him? He really overestimated himself. Chapter 4793. If you win first place, the crowd could not see through the fight between the two foxes. They thought that the ancestor of the Lan family favored Yun Shujo, and his face was full of envy and hatred. Lan Di Mao's mood was a bit complicated. On the one hand, he was very happy. After all, Yun Shujo was from the third branch. She was favored, and the third branch also followed suit. On the other hand, he suspected that his true purpose had been discovered by the ancestor. He was a little nervous. Would he be punished if he did not report such a big matter to the ancestor? As time passed, the spiritual power of the people on the stage became higher and higher. Those people from before were just stepping stones. Lan Luocheng, Lan Luomu, and Lan Luohan were the strongest candidates from the three sides. They had not gone on the stage yet. The three of them had their own plans in mind. The first and second person to step onto the stage would have to fight each other, and then the third person would reap the benefits, so no one was willing to step onto the stage first. At this time, the outcome of the competition on the stage had also been decided, and Lan Luoji from the second branch had won. Seeing this, Lan Luoji was secretly happy in his heart. Lan Luomu was also from the second branch, so he naturally wouldn't challenge him. This way, he would have the upper hand. However, he did not expect that when Lan Luoji challenged Lan Luocheng and Lan Luohan on the stage, neither of them accepted the challenge. As for Hei Shinjo, she was not in the consideration at all, because this guy would not go on the stage unless it was absolutely necessary. The situation was in a deadlock for a moment. Elder Ning had no choice but to say, "How about this? Lan Luocheng, Lan Luohan, and Yun Shujo, the three of you draw lots to decide who will go up and accept the challenge." Yun Shujo knew that she could not avoid it, but she felt that her luck had always been good and she would definitely not be chosen. In the end, this guy saw the fight on the note. This guy was immediately confused. On the stage, Lan Luoji was in a good mood. The more he won, the more points his family had. Yun Shujo was here to give him points. Hei Shinjo thought about it and decided to just admit defeat. After all, face was not worth anything. Just as he was thinking, housekeeper Sue ran over and said in a low voice, "Miss Cousin, the old ancestor said that if you can get first place in this family competition, he will take you to the Zen sect as a guest." Yun Shujo was shocked when she heard that. She turned her head to look at the old ancestor of the Lan family. The old ancestor revealed a meaningful smile, which made it hard to guess what he was thinking. However, this condition was too tempting for He Shinjo. Although she might not be able to meet her parents and rescue them, it was still good to get some information. Therefore, he gritted his teeth and went all out. He Shinjo jumped onto the stage and said to Lan Luoji, "Let's talk business. As long as you are willing to admit defeat, I will give you spiritual stones." Everyone, the old ancestor almost choked on his tea. Even in his wildest dreams, he did not expect such a bizarre scene to appear on the Lan family stage. And he even brought business with him? Lan Luoji was stunned at first, then he sneered again and again. "Yun Shujo, stop dreaming. I'm fighting for honor, I don't care about any spirit stones at all." 100,000. Yun Shujo stretched out a finger. "I advise you to give up on this idea, I want compromise." 200,000. Yun Shujo stretched out 2 fingers. "It's useless for you to say all this. Wealth and honor cannot be lewd. I will not yield." 500,000. Yun Shujo stretched out 5 fingers. "Deal." Everyone. Chapter 4794. It was even harder to be a good person. Everyone could not believe their ears. What happened to fighting for honor? What happened to not being promiscuous? Was he defeated by money just like that? The Lan family's old ancestor had mixed feelings. He wanted to force that little girl to reveal her true abilities, but he did not want her to go up and use money to smash people. This little girl was really difficult to explain in one word. Although Lan Luozi's face was a little embarrassed, he felt that his decision was right. He was the bastard son of the second wife, so he did not have much money on hand. If he could take the opportunity to earn some money, it would naturally be good, because sometimes, cultivation was all about money. Moreover, even if he won against Yun Shujo, he would only gain a little more points. Whether it was against Lan Luocheng or Lan Luohan, he would lose. Moreover, they were ruthless and merciless. If he was injured, the loss would not be worth it. Yun Shujo nodded with satisfaction. "Brother Luoji is really thorough. If you tell Elder Ning that you admit defeat now, I will immediately transfer the spirit stones to you." Lan Luoji felt that if he stood on the stage for a while longer, he would lose face. Thus, he hurriedly said to Elder Ning, "For this round, I admit defeat." Elder Ning was also dumbfounded. However, since Lan Luoji had already admitted defeat, he naturally could not say anything more. He announced, "Third branch, Yun Shujo, wins." Only then did Yun Shujo transfer the spirit stones to Lan Luoji with a smile. Lan Luoji used his divine sense to scan the storage ring, and then frowned. "Yun Shujo, didn't we agree on 500,000 high-grade spirit stones? Why did you only transfer 50 to me?" Yun Shujo had an innocent look on her face. "That's right, I told you 500,000 low-grade spirit stones. Isn't that equivalent to 50 high-grade spirit stones?" Lan Luoji, only then did he remember that when Yun Shujo called out the price, she said 500,000 spirit stones but didn't say what kind of spirit stones it was. This wretched girl was too despicable. Too wicked. You are cheating." Lan Luoji almost died from anger. It was already embarrassing enough for him to admit defeat for the spirit stones, and this Yun Shujo even tricked him. Wouldn't he become the laughingstock of everyone in the future? "Brother Luoji, it's not right for you to say that. I've always been a person of integrity. When I do business, I'm always honest and honest. I didn't force you to do this business with me. You misunderstood it, so why are you blaming me?" Yun Shujo crossed her arms and said casually while tiptoeing. Lan Luoji wanted to strangle this guy in front of him to death. This time, he was really embarrassed and at a disadvantage. He was so aggrieved. Yun Shujo, you wait. Well see. Lan Luoji said angrily and jumped off the stage. Yun Shujo shrugged her shoulders and sighed. It's really hard to be a good person. It's even harder to be a good person. Everyone's noses almost went crooked from anger. A person like you is still a good person? You're too shameless. Since Yun Shujo won without a fight, the next question was whether Lan Luocheng or Lan Luomu would go up on stage to compete. Elder Ning was about to let the two of them draw lots when the old ancestor suddenly said, "Since there are only 4 people left, let's compete in 2s and 2s. The winner will be decided in the end." Elder Ning naturally had no objections and immediately let the 4 of them draw lots. In the end, Yun Shijia's opponent was Lan Luocheng, while Lan Luomu and Lan Luohan drew a group. The two sides drew the order again, and Lan Luma's group would compete first. Chapter 4795. Proud soldiers are bound to lose. Yun Shujo cursed in her heart. Her luck today was really not that good. She must have won first so that she could rest for a while after she won. This guy didn't even think about it. She might not be able to win against Lan Luocheng. Alright, this guy had this kind of mysterious confidence. Yun Shujo jumped to the front of the old ancestor and said with a smile, "Old ancestor, my performance just now was not bad, right?" The corner of the old ancestor's mouth twitched. Not bad? It was not bad. One move was useless and he won with 50 spirit stones. At this time, Lan Luomu and Lan Luohan had already stepped onto the competition stage. Lan Luohan said arrogantly, "Lan Luomu, I heard that not only did you lose to Lan Luocheng, but you also lost to Yun Shujo? You are really useless." Lan Luohan said with a fake smile, "Lan Luomu, you don't have to say such harsh words. I was just careless last time. On the other hand, you always think that you are so great, but in fact, you are nothing." Lan Luohan was immediately enraged and gave Lan Luomu a palm strike. Lan Luomu dodged to the side and the two of them fought. At the beginning, the two of them only competed in movement techniques. Later on, they both released their natal spirit beasts and auxiliary spirit beasts. For a moment, the competition stage was glittering, and it was much more exciting than the previous competition. The ancestor took a look at He Shinjo, who was eating and drinking again, and asked, "Who do you think will win?" Yun Shujo said with a smile, "A proud soldier will definitely lose." The old ancestor smiled bitterly and didn't say anything. The reason why he valued Lan Luochen more was also because the Lan family's generation didn't live up to expectations. Although their talent wasn't bad, their temperament was really difficult to take on a big responsibility. Therefore, he kept Yun Shujo for another reason, which was to use her to polish these people, so that they would know their own strength. Last time, Lan Luomu had suffered a loss at the hands of Yun Shujo. It was obvious that he had improved. On the other hand, Lan Luohan was extremely arrogant. Naturally, she would be defeated. Sure enough, an hour later, Lan Luomu seized an opening in Lan Luohan and sent her flying with a palm strike. After Lan Luohan landed on the ground, she spat out a mouthful of blood. Her face was full of unwillingness. As for Yun Shujo, she was not in his consideration at all. She was just a little trash. Don't look at how he won the small competition last time. This time, there was no such good thing. It was already good enough that he was not seriously injured. Lan Luocheng could not wait to defeat Yun Shujo and then compete with Lan Luomu for the first place. Therefore, after he stepped onto the competition stage, he urged Yun Shujo to come up to the competition stage. When he was a little impatient, Yun Shujo finally got on the stage slowly. "Brother Luocheng, are you going to give me 3 more moves this time?" He Shinjo asked with a smile. Lan Luocheng's face turned even uglier when he recalled what happened last time. "Stop dreaming. I don't have time to waste with you. Let's fight. Brother Luocheng, why don't we make a deal? If you admit defeat, they'll give you spirit stones. Lan Luocheng snorted coldly, save your spirit stones to buy your own coffin. After saying that, Lan Luocheng directly slapped Yun Chuzhou. He Xingjiu dodged while saying, are you shameless? How dare you ambush me? I think you should stop calling me Lan Luocheng and call me Shameless Lan instead. Chapter 4796 was sword intent. Lan Luocheng had learned his lesson from last time. No matter how much Yun Chuzhou scolded him, he did not say anything and took the opportunity to release his giant spiritual whale. This giant spiritual whale of his was much stronger than Lan Luofeng's spiritual tiger shark. Its body occupied almost half of the competition stage. Lan Luocheng's eyes were filled with pride. His giant spiritual whale was huge and could force the little trash in front of him off the competition stage without any effort. If she knew what was good for her, it would be fine. Otherwise, don't blame him for being ruthless. The huge body of the spiritual whale instantly appeared in front of Yun Chuzhou. Lan Luofeng could not help but cover her mouth. She even closed her eyes and did not dare to look. Lan Dimeo's expression was also very grave. If this little trash could not dodge in time, she would either die or be injured. She would definitely die. At this moment, he was surprised to find that Yun Chuzhou's body had jumped out from a very tricky angle and actually dodged the attack of the giant spiritual whale. Everyone let out a cry of surprise. Although they did not like Yun Chuzhou, the wonderful movement technique that she had just displayed still amazed them. Whether it was speed, angle, or timing, they were all just right. As long as she was just a little bit away, she would not be able to escape unscathed. Lan Luocheng was also shocked, but he did not take it to heart. No matter how mysterious her movement technique was, it would not be able to outlast his giant spiritual whale. Moreover, he had a supporting spiritual beast, and he himself had not made a move yet. Therefore, there was no suspense in this competition. Yun Chuzhou relied on her agile movement technique to dodge a few attacks from the giant spiritual whale. However, she knew that this could not go on. Even if she was tired, she would die. It seemed that she could only use her sword. Therefore, this fellow summoned cheap slut number 1 displayed half of the sword techniques that she had learned on the rock wall. When everyone saw that Yun Chuzhou had summoned her treasured sword, they were somewhat disapproving. In the Chongshao continent, very few people used weapons in the process of fighting. This was because in their opinion, not only were weapons useless, they were also a burden. Only people with very low spiritual power would use weapons to assist. Could it be that Yun Chuzhou wanted to rely on the sword in her hand to win? Although the sword was an immortal sword, it was also useless. She would definitely lose. However, after seeing Yun Chuzhou's sword technique, everyone was more or less shocked. Even if they did not know sword techniques, they could still see the profundity of this sword technique. Moreover, in a short span of 10 breaths, Yun Chuzhou had already stabbed the giant spiritual whale several times. It was no longer as solid as before. Lan Luocheng snorted coldly and released his auxiliary spiritual beast, spiritual tiger shark. He was certain that as long as his auxiliary spiritual beast joined the battle, Yun Chuzhou would be defeated very quickly. After all, his auxiliary spiritual beast was more powerful than an ordinary person's natal spiritual beast. Seeing that the spiritual tiger shark was already less than 3 feet away from Yun Chuzhou, and Yun Chuzhou's energy was focused on the huge spiritual whale, it was obvious that she was already unable to resist the spiritual tiger shark. Seeing this, everyone had different expressions. Most of them were gloating, they deserved it. I told you to show off, I told you to be pampered, now let's see what you can do. Trash is trash. No matter how pampered you are, you're still trash. However, in the next moment, everyone was stunned. They saw that the spiritual tiger shark was actually blocked by an invisible barrier. They were extremely sure that it wasn't a spiritual energy barrier. What was that thing? Ah, I know. That's sword intent. Someone cried out in surprise. You're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.